Hey everyone, welcome to my Chiffon Technique compilation video. If you are not sure what the Chiffon Technique is, have a glance at the pictures showing on your screen right now. I'm showing you some examples of the soaps that you're about to watch me make and hopefully try to make yourself. These are some sneak peeks of what you will see. Um, I will at the end also put some examples of other ways I use the chiffon technique and have not recorded the videos for them yet. So that will give you a little bit of a glance into the future of some of the videos you hopefully will see in the next chiffon technique compilation video. And they will also be put up, published individually. But in a quick description of what the chiffon technique is soap sheets, large, thin sheets of soap that are then embedded into some other color of soap. And sometimes, I guess the basic idea is they're kind of free floating in the soap. I'm not doing, although some of them have a little bit of specific shape to them, it's a very free type of design. And so I'm not making sheets of soap to cut out little bitty embeds in. Well, I do that in one of these, but that's not the chiffon technique. The idea, the name came from the very first soap that you saw. I was trying to make a soap that looked like chiffon scarves kind of floating in the sky, floating in the breeze. That was the idea. And I'm hoping that you can see that and see the other ways I've put this look to the test. See you after. Hey everyone, we're going to jump right into the chiffon rainbow soap because you're going to be wondering what's going on here with me dumping soap on my work surface. But quickly, I want to explain that little weird string you see on my spreader. That is just another piece of soap. I'm slinging soap literally today. So it kind of looked like a hair on film, and I just wanted you to know it wasn't a hair. So it's an extremely sanitized work surface, and what the work surface is very important in this video. You may have seen in my last few videos I've been using this. It's just a silicone mat, and it's my new best friend. I have done these types of sheets of soap for a long time now, on various surfaces. I've used those really thin cutting boards, obviously ones not used for food, but I've used those. I've used Ziploc baggies. I've used saran wrap. I've used a variety of different ways to create thin sheets of soap because I use them in a lot of my crystal soaps, and some other soaps as well. For any who hadn't guessed already, for my silk rainbow soaps and this new chiffon rainbow soap, this is how I achieve it. Really thin sheets of colored soap. And the colors, the way you work the colors, is what determines the look you're going to get. So how thin you create them and how much colorant you use really alters the look. And then also the temperature that you pour the soap you're putting these in, or soap as you're pouring over them. Whatever your technique is for creating the soap, the temperature is also super important. All of these colors are Mad Micas colors, and I will put them in my description. Those little pourers are also, the little cups, silicone cups, are also from Mad Micas. And yes, I am now an affiliate, and I will receive a small commission if you purchase through my affiliate link in the description. Here's the last one of the rainbow that I'm doing. I didn't do a ton of colors. I didn't include the purple. So the blue's the last one. You also may see a little bit of shimmer in there. I hope you can see it on the screen. I just used a tiny bit of shimmering mica in these. I don't think any of them are BioGlitter. I think they're all shimmering micas. For a little sparkle. I promise you the tiniest amount will give you a really nice sparkly effect. We'll talk more about those colorants in a little bit. Right now, I'm kind of doing a little demo as I'm pouring this soap. Because you see the orange. Look at the color of the soap when I put that stick in. It suddenly looks really orangish or yellow. I've got the fragrance oil in there already. But I freaked out a couple of times while I was stirring my soap. And then I realized I'm just seeing the reflection of my stirring stick. So when I pulled it out, it's still a little too yellow for me. So I'm doing the old bluing trick. Tiny fraction of a drop of liquid dye. Blue. I've heard you can do it with other colors, but I always use blue. I don't know. I forget which other color I've heard works, but blue is my favorite. This is liquid stained glass, liquid soap dye. Please use soap dye, not food coloring. This one is from Wholesale Supplies, plus I'll link it, of course. But, it really wasn't a super yellowed soap, but the fragrance oil did dull the color just a tiny bit. So I added a little bit, and I feel like it brightened it. It's definitely a trick I've used that's worked wonders in the past. But you can't put it in a really yellow soap and expect it to not just turn green, because it will. So I think I did show you the temperature on this. My sweet spot for pouring soaps where I want the embeds, the pieces, whatever I'm putting in there to work the way I want them, is about 133 for my type of soap, which is Premium Crystal Clear from Crafter's Choice Wholesale Supplies Plus. Not an affiliate with that company at this time. But that temperature is important because it does work for mine. It may not work for yours. If you're using Stevenson's, that may be too low. If you're using another brand, it may be too high. You have to learn the sweet spot for your particular soap. It's a little high for some embeds. I wouldn't normally pour if I was putting like one sheet in. I wouldn't have it at 133. It would just melt it away. Well, not away, but it would melt into the clear, and then it would be a little cloudy and not really see the color very well. So, because I knew I was putting all these in at once, at 133 was my best spot for that. If I'm doing smaller bits and embeds, I usually go around 127, 128, depending on what I'm doing. But you see it is softening these. That's why I wanted to pour it hot. I wanted to soften them, but not melt them. And the reason I want them a little bit soft, and even a little bit may melt here and there. I don't think any did when I looked at the finished product, but I want them to look like fabric. So the fluidity of the sheets is aided by having the soap poured a little bit hotter than you might normally pour. It's kind of miraculous that I didn't have more bubbles than I did. But if you're careful with how you put them in there and make sure you spritz, and I didn't shake it this time, but I did. You saw me messing with the stick a little bit, trying to stir them up and get any bubbles that were in there. I'm going to give this guy a haircut now. I was kind of torn as to whether or not to do that, but I did. I may do another one later and leave the hair, leave the little soap frills on the top. I'm not sure. I just thought they were kind of thin and might just break and look funny, so I just did that, and I'm going to make another soap with those scraps because nothing goes to waste. Not even the soap that poured over the edges that you might have seen, the clear soap that was cleaned up magically through the magic of film. It will be used, and these little scraps as well. The fragrance for this one is Sea Island Grapefruit. It is yummy. If you like grapefruit, it's a really nice grapefruit scent. And it stays clear for the most part, as you saw. And it is from Wellington Fragrance Company. If you have not tried them, I would give them a try. I love their fragrances, and they're fairly inexpensive for what you get. I get the premium type, because it is specific. It is definitely for soap, and it is a little bit higher in strength. You have to take that into account when you're looking at the IFR recommendations, and they do have those. They have a chart somewhere on their website. But when I unmolded this guy right here, I was thrilled. I was just excited about what the bottom of it looked like as the top. I don't know, you could really see the sparkle in it. And the movement, you could see the fluidity. It looked like fabric had been shoved into a soap mold or soap. So I was thrilled with that. Here I'm just trying to figure out which way to cut so that we could get vertical shots for a short. All these weird things you don't think about until you're doing YouTube videos. But this is my Uncle Andy's. I love this thing so much. If you haven't taken the plunge to purchase one yet, it's a little on the expensive side for most of us. But if you run a business of any kind, it's completely worth it. It is the cutter for melt and pour soap. If you try to use a wire cutter, you're likely just going to break the wires. This is a little soap guillotine. You've got to please watch your fingers because it could cut them off, I'm sure. It's extremely, extremely sharp blade. But it's not, you'd have to like really not pay attention. Like when you're cleaning it, ask me, from experience, when you're cleaning it, just remember it's going to cut through whatever you're cleaning it with. So be super careful, please. As I'm cutting these, I'll talk a little bit more about the colorants. I'm going to do an entire video on colorants using micas in maybe ways you haven't thought of before. A lot of times we use just a lot of mica, and I do that too. And I want the shimmery, pearly look, and I want really vibrant colors. But as you see, you can see right through these. And all I did is use less mica. I'm going to do a kind of more drastic demonstration of that idea coming up in a stained glass soap video. I'm going to make a few different kinds of stained glass videos using different colorants and showing options and showing what might not be the best option, because some soap colorants are going to bleed and not give you great results, especially if you have a soap sit around for a few months and don't use it right away. If you use it right away, it probably doesn't matter. But if you're putting your soaps in a store somewhere, you might want to consider something that doesn't bleed, and we'll play with that idea in a later video. But for these, that's how I got the soap to look, the soap sheets to look like fabric and to look like see-through fabric. My silk rainbow soap that you may have seen posted in the soap groups. I'll add a picture. Oh no, I've already added pictures. So I won't add a picture in here of this, but if you ask me, maybe I can leave one in the comments. I'm not sure if I can do that or not. But I know I can put one in the community tab. If you haven't used the community tab, please do ask me questions in there. It's a great place to connect. Of course, you can comment on the video as well with questions if you have any. But I'll leave a picture of the silk rainbow in there, and so you can see a difference between the chiffon rainbow and the silk rainbow. The silk rainbow, I used a ton of mica to get the look I wanted, and it worked, and it's exactly what I wanted at the time. I wanted it to look like silk scarves, and I wanted these to look like chiffon scarves, and I think I did it. I was pretty pleased with these. I was pretty much doing a little happy dance when this unmolded and through this whole cut. As we're going along here beveling, I just want to mention, first, let me ask you a quick question. If you would, let me know in the comments whether or not, if you make soaps, let me know whether you bevel your soaps or not, if you make square or rectangle shapes that kind of lean toward beveling. I never used to bevel them because my first soaps I started creating in a loaf were drink soaps, and they had all kinds of very large, chunky, funky fruits sticking out of the top and ice cubes, and they were really fun. I liked them, but I'm kind of leaning a different direction right now. I'm working more toward art soaps with less fruit in them. I don't know. It just kind of got away from me. But those, if I had trimmed the tops of those, it would have kind of messed with the fruit design. So I didn't want to do that with those, and I just didn't get in the habit of it. And now that I'm doing soaps that kind of create a different type of picture, and I don't have as much on the tops, I'm starting to bevel, and I'm starting to like it more and more. So let me know if you like that, and if you've done it before. I'm just using a vegetable peeler. It's really easy. It looks a lot easier in the video because trust me, I'm not really going that fast. I'm really slow, and I'm hesitant. And that's one thing you can't be. So I take my time to place the peeler at the corner and then pull quickly. If you're hesitant at all, you'll mess it up, or at least I will. So there's the final product, and I really hope you got something out of this. I'm imagining many of you kind of guessed the way I did it because I've seen some of you using soap sheets before. But hopefully you learned something and enjoyed this. Please subscribe and like, and let me know what you think. I'm hoping that I can help you to become a better soaper. Thank you so much. Bye. Hey everyone. Today we're working on a bonfire and ember soap using my Chiffon Technique to create the look of a bonfire. As usual, my information that is up on the screen, I'm not going to be reading to you word for word, so hopefully you can catch all of that you need and write it down. The links will be in the description of the video. The description box usually falls right under the video and before the comments section, depending on the device you're using. Maybe someday I'll do a tutorial on how to find that because I know it's difficult for a lot of people. I wanted to create a fall bonfire feeling soap, and I wanted to do that using neon colors. My Mad Micas are my favorite. And so I kind of hem and hawed around about the way I wanted to do it, and I ended up using my Chiffon Technique that I created actually a long time ago for Silk Rainbow soap that I did, which I still have not done a video for. Eventually I will, but probably in spring or early summer. But the one you may have seen, the video you may have seen with this technique is Chiffon Rainbow. And the idea of chiffon was coming from the world of resin art, where a lot of people were taking actual chiffon and putting it in their resin. Well, we can't quite do the same with soap, but I wanted to create the look of it. What I ended up doing was not really recreating that look, kind of creating my own look instead. So that's why it's called that, and that's at least what I call it. And I hadn't, I hope I'm not stealing somebody else's glory with saying it's my technique. I just haven't seen anybody else do it. So no thoughts intended there. I just, people started calling it Ms. Terry's, so I just went ahead and took it. Basically, you see that what I'm using. You're going to see me this fall and Christmas continue to try to figure out ways to create the designs I want without my favorite soap base, because it's just not easily accessible at this time, and it looks like it's going to be a while before we can get it. I typically use Crafter's Choice Premium Crystal Clear. That's just my favorite. That's what I like to use. I like clarity of it. Nothing compares, in my opinion. I know there are ultra clears out there, other brands, and they look pretty darn clear, and they're nice soaps, but I also need, with the types of designs I do, I need a soap that stays open a little bit longer and doesn't seize up right away. So a lower melting point soap, and this is what this soap offers. I've never found one to be even close. So you're going to see me playing with a variety of different bases. This one I'm using the basic clear from the same company, but I'm not, which it isn't as clear, just isn't. But beyond that, I'm not so much a fan of the feel of it on my skin. So I'm having that. I'm using 50% of the crystal clear. And because it is a black-based soap, I'm adding activated charcoal for the background. I'm using Wholesale Supplies Plus, Crafter's Choice, Premium, Aloe Vera, and Olive. Well, it is a very clear soap, so with the clarity, you're still going to see the activated charcoal really well. It's only the white soaps that you really have a difficult time with that. But just as clear as the crystal clear, but with a hint of yellow. So the clarity's there, but it's colored, it's tinted, is the aloe vera and olive, or aloe and olive. I'm not sure how they refer to it, but I love that soap, and I love the way it makes my skin feel. That's very subjective because your skin may not have the same reaction as mine. Everybody is different in what feels good to their skin and how their skin reacts to things. So that being said, I'm also going to be playing with some other soaps. I've got a bunch of, I want to make some detergent-free soaps and use some of the other bases that I have on hand, and maybe try a few others from that same company. Maybe I'll be playing around with a variety of other things. I don't know. Who knows what this season's going to hold? It's a little scary, but still going to move forward, and I'm still going to create tutorials because I feel like sometimes learning how to work around problems that you might have or come across, or difficulties like this in getting product, I think that's just as important as learning new techniques. So I'm encouraging you to also think outside of the box with what you use and how you use it. There shouldn't be really anything I need to tell you about this process I'm doing right now, other than that what I'm putting it on. I should have put that in the text. I didn't, but it is a silicone sheet or silicone mat. It's the one I purchased was from Amazon, and it's an extra large. It's intended for crafts. So it can be used for, your kids to roll out their Play-Doh on, or for painting on, and you don't want it to get all over your table or whatever. But I use it for soap. I initially bought it for just to have a nice background over my table, because I'm not in my typical soap room. I'm on a card table, which is why you see it shake occasionally, for filming purposes, until I'm able to mix things up and get my soap room filmable. It's just not right now. I just really don't have enough space to work, so it's and film at the same time. Once you start putting up lights and cameras and stuff like that, I'll be tripping over the legs, and I don't need to do that. So I work in a different room and set up a card table. Every time you see a new video, I have set up for that, although I do video in batches, so you'll see that sometimes too. But again, it's every weekend the table and the camera and the lights go up, and I take them down Sunday night. This particular technique I've been using for a very long time, way before I had this silicone mat. And so you can do other things. You don't have to use a silicone mat. You can get a similar effect from peeling out your pitchers, or if you use the plastic pitchers, it's very easy to pull. Most of the time, it's easy to pull the soap out and have a real thin layer of soap. Although it's not flat like this, it's still usable in certain types of soaps and looks you want. That's what I did for my Silk Rainbow soap. I didn't pour it out flat like this. Well, one of them I did, because I didn't have enough from the bucket. So, but other things you can do, you can pour it in a silicone pan or mold, like a slab mold, or even a loaf mold. It's easy to get a little too much soap in the loaf mold especially. So be cautious with how much you pour and roll it around. Let it, if you just kind of pour it and try to fill it so that the bottom fills up, you're going to end up with too much soap. For some of the designs I do, it'll work for some because I use that in other looks too, but you won't be able to get as thin of a not slice, sheet like this, and without kind of spreading it like I do. So there's another way. You could do it on the top of a large plastic like Ziploc bag. If you have those oversized bags, you could do there. I have poured soap onto those and it does peel off. It you might be able to get it to peel off of what do you call it? The plastic coated like freezer paper. Or what's the other kind? I know there's a better name for that. It's not freezer paper, but I think you know what I'm talking about. But you could also get silicone kitchen sheets, the type that you bake on. You can use those. Just don't use them for food and soap. Please have separate ones available for use because you don't want to get any molecule of food in your soap or soap in your food. Not great. What else have I? You could probably use saran wrap if you covered a solid surface in it, like cover a piece of cardboard or tape it down to a surface. You could probably get away with using saran wrap or even possibly your shrink wrap if you're not pouring it too hot. So just a variety of other ways you could get this look. I wouldn't necessarily use waxed paper because you're going to end up with wax in your soap. It's going to come off in there. So what you see me creating now on the screen, all the little chopping and stuff, there are things I would do different. I love the soap. Don't get on my case. Some people get upset when I put my soaps down. I love the soap. It just wasn't what I envisioned, which for me, I'm not upset about it. It's just room to grow. It's how can I figure out a way to make it better? That's what I'm always trying to do, is how can I make a soap better or a technique better, or that's how you get better, is you don't necessarily have to criticize or hate your soaps to improve upon them. You can have a perfectly good soap and still improve it sometimes. Most of the time, really. So this little thing I envisioned, part of it really, really worked and part of it didn't. I was trying to lay down here coals and ashes. That was the look I was going for at the bottom. And while I think the size of it, for the most part, like it turned out about as tall as I wanted it, like coming up through the soap was about just what I wanted. But and the gray, I did like the gray in there. That silver is Interstellar by Mad Micas. It's really pretty. It's a silvery silver. It's very nice and has a really nice little shine to it. But then I also wanted the look of the ashes, whitish ashes on top. So I added a little, you'll see in a minute, I add some titanium dioxide and pour over it. I should have done that in 3 different steps. I should have put a little titanium dioxide. See, here it is right now. I should have done it in between these. And poured a little bit more soap over the whole thing and encased it a little bit better. I also should have trimmed the sides. You'll see why in a minute. That becomes apparent when I try to put it in the mold. Obviously, I knew I was going to have to trim the ends because I wanted it to go further beyond the end of the loaf so that I could cut it and it would be a straight fit so that you see the cut of the look of the coals. Like when you're doing a landscape soap, it's kind of like that. You're not wanting to see it from the top. It looks cool from the top, but you want to see it from the front. And I wanted it to show on the very end slices, which it didn't quite. But see, it looks cool to me right there. It looks like coals. But what happens is I'm putting it in a soap that's an all black soap, other than the embeds. So what happened is the areas of those crystals that did not get covered in the silver or the white got covered in black. and they weren't coated enough. I should have coated them in some way. I could have just tossed them in a little bit more mica or glitter to seal the color in, but I didn't. I didn't anticipate this. So the brightness and brilliance of the little pieces of coal, the little crystals, some of those are just crystals I'd made for my crystal soaps. If you haven't seen me make those by now, you probably haven't watched very many of my videos. So I'll invite you to look at many of my videos. I create those. Probably, I wouldn't say half, but maybe a third of my videos. I'm using those. I use them for a lot of different things. So, and there will be more. There will be more coming up real soon as we get closer to Christmas. And here, all I'm doing, all you see me doing, because I don't really explain it, is I'm just fitting them to the loaf mold. And the scraps, I promise you, will be used. I'm still deciding what I want to do with them, but obviously if I use them all together, I can do a different type of fire look of some kind. So, but the embers, the coals and embers, if I had coated them a little bit better with the white and light silver and silver, you would have seen the red and orange and yellow, the bright fiery type of colors, show up a lot better. But when they got coated with black, some of the crystals are sort of see-through, transparent enough to where the black blocks the light from coming through and kind of browns them down a little bit, so they don't really look like the coals and fiery lit glowing embers that I wanted in my head. So it doesn't look bad. It's still, if you know what the soap is, I've noticed, because I've posted it in a few different ways. If you are told up front what the soap is supposed to be, you can see the embers, you can see the coals pretty easily. But if I just say, hey, what's this? It's questionable as far as that. Some people will see it as fire, as a bonfire, and some people will see that as like dirt, and flower roots. A lot of people saw flowers coming up through the dirt, and it to be honest, I totally saw that when everybody started saying it. But part of that, I feel like, was that the yellow, there's my other, I'm not going to say mistake because it's a beautiful soap, but the other thing I would change is I would add to that yellow, that beautiful, brilliant, bright neon yellow that you see there, I would add some mica, maybe Lala or bright yellow raincoat. I know there's a bazillion other good soap companies or mica companies that offer soap safe micas. I just tend to always go toward the Mad Mica's colors. If I'd put a little mica in there, it might have also helped to block the light, or not really block the light, but block how dark that black shows through, because you're really just wanting it to be more opaque. I could have also added a little more titanium dioxide, but I didn't really want it to look pale yellow. I wanted to maintain the neon look of that. I don't know if you noticed when I, well, two things real quick. When I added the yellow, I added a touch, because it's tennis ball breaker, I added a touch of the, what do you call it? Flotation device, just a little bit, to counteract the kind of natural green tone that pigment has. And it worked really well. I like, if you look at the color on the screen, it's exactly what I wanted. But then the black that surrounds it kind of shows through and it becomes a green. I honestly, when I cut it open, I immediately thought that I accidentally got some of my neon green shreds into the soap. That's how green it looked to me. So the other thing I wanted to quickly mention that I didn't put up on the screen is I added to this part. I didn't add it to the flames and the sheets of soap that you see there that become the flames. Is to that black, I did add the applewood fir needle. Of course, that's the main note of this soap. But I also added a little hint of campfire. There is already campfire notes in the applewood fir needle, but they're really subtle, and I wanted to bring them out a little bit more without overpowering. I didn't want a straight up campfire soap because that can be a little cloying for some people. I love the smell of a campfire, but for a soap that you're using on a daily basis or whatever, that might be too much for some. So I'm in love with the fragrance blend. I also added a little fir needle essential oil. I'm really in love with the fragrance blend for this. It smells amazing. So I was really happy with that. Now here's the part where you see I should have cut off the sides a little more. I think I just cut off a little bit just there. I was more concerned with the ends. I wanted it to fit down in properly. But I should have cut the sides too. And I do sort of remedy that, but I could have made it a little easier on myself. You'll see what I do in a minute. I've never, ever, at least in my memory, come back and had to cut something within the mold. But I figured that was the easiest way to do it. I was extremely gentle. I did not cut my silicone mold. I promise you, I didn't even scratch it. And I checked because I was worried about that. But so I just trimmed it up a little bit. I always I did pour a little soap first. I always do that if I'm putting an embed. If you put an embed flat into a soap without something underneath it, you are likely to get areas where the soap doesn't run underneath like you want it. Or if you do want it. I don't know. You just have less control. That's what I'm saying. If you don't want to see, like if I had black and you didn't want to see that on the bottom, then I would pour clear on the very bottom and adhere it and then pour my black. But I wanted the whole thing to have a black feel, the feeling of, nighttime campfire with the embers kind of coming up off the ground, I guess. Anyway, so that's what you see me doing. I'm just cramming those in there. You can sort of semi-direct where they go. I probably could have done a better job with that. Really isn't what I exactly envisioned for the flames. But again, once you start pouring a soap like this, you can't just stop. If I pulled those back out of there and tried again, that'd just be one very hot, sticky, gross mess. And with all kinds of bubbles and holes. And I didn't want that. So if you do this kind of technique, one of the things you need to know is don't mess with them too much once they're in there. You can wiggle them around like you see what I'm doing here. And this is the other pointer I have. You have to pour in between each layer, in between each thing. And since I folded them, you have to pour in between the fold and in between each color as well. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a lot of holes. And, a few little tiny bits little tiny holes with light peeking through might not be a horrible thing. You don't want a lot of that, or you find your soap falling apart. You might find other problems with it, and it won't look as nice. And there's another tip with this technique is you have to tap a lot. Why am I tapping? If you don't know, that's to get air bubbles up. Anytime you have a lot of embeds like this, you have a very big chance of air bubbles. And so you don't want to trap the air bubbles. And some of them are going to get trapped. It's just going to happen. But if you're tapping it, you're more likely to loosen some that are down there. And then you spray the top with alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and it pops the bubbles. I also sprayed a little bit as I went. I don't know if it got on camera or not, but just a little bit. You just need a little tiny squirt. I use, by the way, a very fine alcohol mister for my spraying my soaps. I see some people using a really kind of like a heavy duty cleaning spray that to me, and this is just how I have to work. That's too much for me. Like, I like better control over it. If I need more, I can spray more, but I like a fine mist because it's not going to displace things and it's not going to add too much alcohol, but just it will add enough. You can have too much alcohol. A lot of people say you can't add too much in your soaps, like when you're doing layers, adhering layers, etc. You can add too much. Someday I'll try to show you an example of what happens when you add too much, but you can. And it can be frustrating, and it can not necessarily ruin your soap because it will eventually evaporate out, but it can create lines and layers and things that you don't want necessarily the look of in your soap. It'll destroy the look for the most part. So here we go, pulling it out. I hope within this that I'm being clear with some of these things I'm saying. Hopefully everything is clear in the video of what I'm doing, because I'm not giving like a line-by-line instruction either up on the screen or with my rambling. I'm just hoping to help you troubleshoot things. If you have any questions, of course, you know where to find me. Cutting this thing, honestly, the Uncle Andy's, as you may know if you know me, is my favorite. It's really like, for a loaf soap, it's the cutting tool to use for melt and pour soap. I have to use a double-handled cheese knife for some of my slab soaps because these Uncle Andy's just won't fit in right in to cut it the way I need to for those. But for loaf soaps, it's my go-to. And you see, and especially in the end pictures, you see how high those flames are coming up, right? And I had plenty of wiggle room to cut where it didn't smash any of them down. It didn't compromise the flames at all. So don't worry if you do kind of high top soaps or soaps with large embeds. I mean, there's a limit, obviously. The thing is only so tall. So you might want to measure that and see for yourself if you create taller soaps with lots of embeds sticking out, which you'll see soon because I'm doing my Mima's bootleg cider coming up. So you'll see some cinnamon sticks and such sticking out of a soap soon. Although I don't think they stick out as much as these flames do. But anyway, here's the cuts. This is, I tried to not show it. I tried to edit a lot of it where I was really kind of perplexed and disappointed about the green. Anytime you see my hands kind of flap outward, I'm like, what? That's just what's going on here? Because I didn't, I wasn't expecting green where the yellow flame was. So I think that added to the look of people saying they looked like flowers. And I think it would be just as easy to make a soap that's flowers growing up out of the soil. I would probably use different color combo for that, though. And yeah, green would definitely be a part of it. But I hope that you can still see the look I was going for with the flames. I wanted the shape to be a little bit different with the flames, but I just, like I said, once I started putting them in there, I was kind of not guessing, but flying by the seat of my pants with what was going on underneath the black soap. I'm used to doing a lot of these in clear so I can see a little bit better down in there. So, some of these flames are really swirling around. So let's just pretend that there's a nice big wind coming by. I put that yellow thing up because I wanted to show you the difference between the green that it looks like and the yellow that it actually was. You can see it at the top, though, where that yellow shows. That's the same slice. It's the same sheet of yellow soap, but in the black, it looks green. Something to keep in mind if you do yellow soap, yellow embeds in black. You've got to be, you at least be aware that it might be kind of green. So I'll play with that, I'm sure, in the future to see how I can, see if I can get something to actually look yellow like that. That's a thin sheet. That's part of the issue. It's a very thin piece of yellow, so it doesn't really hold up on its own. It's very thin. So I think I'm heading toward the end here, and I just want to say I do really love this soap. One of them, the one where the embers are kind of crooked at the very end, they kind of popped up. That's mine in my tub. I'm using it now, and I love this soap. It really feels nice. If you are typically dry, your skin gets dried out by activated charcoal, which can happen for some skin types. Use the aloe vera and olive oil soap, and it's really not that, it's not drying at all. It's actually quite moisturizing, which I can't really say, but it feels good on my skin. If you're still here, thank you so much for hanging out with me and watching me make this soap. I hope you learned something. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your questions and comments. Let me know what else you would like to see me do with this design. I have about 50 in my head so far, so I'm not sure what's going to be next, but I will definitely be doing a variety with this design. Thanks so much. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for stopping by. Bye. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the party. We're going to do a garden party soap today, and you will see a majority of the instructions, or at least everything I'm using, in the text at the top of the video, or well, it kind of moves around a little so you can see what's going on, but follow along with that, and I will interject when I need to, because there are probably some nuances here that I did not get to put in the text because it's a little bit of a complicated soap. Mostly the complication is when we put it together. None of the individual parts are really difficult. But I will be telling you also a little bit about the inspiration for this soap and how it came to be. But first, I'd like to introduce my Introduce my co-host, Mr. Soaps and Such.
Hello, how are you? Top of the morning. Is that enthusiastic enough?
I didn't tell you to be enthusiastic, but it's nice to see that you are. Okay.
Maybe we can do it this time without the solicitors knocking on the door.
Oh, that would be nice. Yeah. Yeah, we had part of this done, and then we hear a big knock, 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 like anybody needs to knock on our door at 5:50 p.m. I mean, come on, people.
I tell you.
Just don't knock. If you know me, email me. You don't need to knock on my door. You can see how I feel about strangers knocking on my door. Okay, so a little bit about this soap and how it came to be. Mr. Soaps and Such, do you recall when I made the chiffon? Well, I did the chiffon rainbow first.
Yeah, I remember those.
With those sheets.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
That was a fun one. And a really cool technique. And then I did the chiffon bonfire. You remember that?
Yeah. I remember the ones with the sheets. Yeah, they were good.
And you remember how upset I was once we cut the chiffon bonfire, that because we wanted it to look like a fire. That was the whole idea. And I wanted to use neons. And I used tennis ball breaker from Mad Micas as the yellow, but I specifically added something, a little bit of a yellow mica. I can't even remember which one it was. Maybe yellow raincoat. I don't know.
Yeah, I do.
And because I wanted it to yellow up a little bit more, because tennis ball breaker can look a little green.
Yeah.
And then I added a little titanium dioxide too to make sure it was opaque enough. And apparently I didn't add enough, because when we cut it open, the yellow, when it at the places in the soap where it was in the black soap, which was most of it, because that was the base I used, and really it was only the little tops that were sticking out that weren't in the. We had little tops sticking out that kind of looked like flames was the idea. But because the black soap around was so kind of intense, it made that yellow look green. And to me, that just was weird. It's a fire soap, and green flames are weird. Doesn't mean they don't exist, but in a campfire, that's not a normal thing. So I freaked out a little bit. Do you remember that?
Yes.
It's like, yes, you freak out at every soap. But so I posted it in all the soap groups, and I think I just asked you what you thought it looked like, because I wanted to see if it gave the bonfire image with that green in there. And most of you did say it looked like a fire. There were some other neat descriptions, and I just wanted you to kind of guess. And a few people, I'm going to say several, not the majority, but several people saw sprouts coming up out of the dirt and little flowers at the top, and flowers sprouting like in spring kind of a thing. And the minute you said it, I saw it. It definitely had that look and could have been kind of sold as that, except it was fragranced with, campfire. So that would have been a little weird to sell flowers as campfire. So I did mention in my communications with some of you that I thought that was a really cool idea to do that same design and technique, but as sprouts intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had that in the back of my mind for spring, and I was kind of, I wasn't jumping at it. And then Mad Micah's, who you just saw, I am affiliated with, but they did not. Affiliate is not the same thing as a sponsorship, just so you know. They're not paying me to do anything. I don't get free Micahs. I'm not paid. But I do love their stuff. I love their colors, and that's what I use. So they happened to start something at the beginning of this year where they're creating these really neat color blends, and they're just really unique. And they all seem to be, so far, they all seem to be like a mica blended with a pigment, and seems to be like a neon pigment, because we had that bubblegum pink first, and then we had marigolds, and then we got one called Garden Party. And in my head, when I read that it was going to be called Garden Party, and saw the really bright green that you see in that little rectangle mold on the screen right now, when I saw that, I immediately had the image of the soap that I wanted to make using the Chiffon Technique, the one that kind of was in the Chiffon Bonfire, but not really. And I had a really clear picture of what I wanted to do with it. And anyway, so that's what I'm making. Right now you see me mushing up. Anytime you use a pigment, you really have to mush the lumps out. They're tiny little lumps, but if you look in the bottom, it looks almost gritty when you're mixing it. If you're mixing it with alcohol or with anything else, if you're blending it directly into soap, I don't recommend that. You can get away with that with micas, but not really with pigments as much. But if you mush them around, they'll dissolve. You just have to spend more time mushing. And I do have a way I'm going to try that I've seen one of the cold process soapers do that looks like a more efficient and really cool way to mush those lumps out. But I still have to purchase a tool, and I haven't done that yet. So eventually you'll see a video on that, because I think it's a really cool way to get all of the lumps out. Anyway, I got the majority out there. The big mistake, the minor mistake I made, and this is just, I think I mentioned it up here. Don't add your alcohol too soon. Don't mix up all your colors at once. If you're using alcohol, if you're using glycerin, which some people do, you absolutely could go ahead and mix them all up ahead of time. If you're using fragrance oil, same thing. But anyway, you'll see me going back and adding more alcohol, because it just dries up. It just, the colors suck it up, especially if they are pigmented colors. If they have a pigment, or they're a blend of mica and pigment, they tend to be a little more absorbative. I don't know. Absorbent. I knew there was a real word for it. It's much more fun to make up words, but yeah, I knew there was a real word out there.
Absorbanizer.
Absorbanization.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, you'll see me doing one layer at a time. I've got a lot going on here, so the order isn't super important as far as when you make the various embeds. For me, I'm having to film it, so I got to save time. I don't want to be filming for 3 hours and try to edit that. So I one thing is setting up and I'm doing something else and whatever. You'll see you basically need sheets of soap, which we're about to make. And this is in a second. In here, right there's little thin sheets in the rectangles. That's a different purpose, and that's not full. That's about maybe 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch thick. Very, very, very thin layers. But here we're pouring out on a mat. This mat is a silicone mat, and it's brilliant to do this kind of work on. It is so much fun and really easy to kind of work from if you're doing some freeform, freestyle kind of stuff. So we're kicking it up a notch a little bit with these because we're putting 2 colors in at once. The green's in the middle because that's going to represent your stems or your roots kind of a look. You can do whatever you want with it. For the look I was going for, I wanted the green to be represented at the bottom. And I really would have liked a little more green with these, but the way it turned out, because when I was looking at that, I was worried. I was like, that green's not going to show up. But it shows up enough, and where it doesn't show up, it still looks really cool. There was nothing in the soap when I cut it at the end that I was, I should have done this or I should have done that. I loved it. This is one of the few soaps that when it was done right away, I was like, that's my vision. That's exactly what I wanted it to be. You know how bad I am at that.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're making thin sheets of soap, and at the same time, I am pouring off a little bit to the side. That's going to be used later to cut out some little flowers using fondant cutters. That's why I'm doing it with the colors that I want flowers. You can use whatever colors you want for your flowers. You could have you could have gone purples and blues and pinks, and I wanted the neon look, because part of it was I was wanting to use the other colors that Mad Micah came out with, because I think they looked really cool together. They didn't have a yellow yet, which is why I ended up doing my own blend. But the bubblegum pink is what you see. That was the first one they released, and I will be using marigolds in just a minute as well. And I thought the yellow would kind of tie them all together really nicely. They're gorgeous together. Anyway, so those are your flower colors, and these are the soap sheets that we're making. With the other things that we'll be making are the little thin rectangles for cutting out the flowers, and then you'll see there's one green solid rectangle in there. That's going to be shredded later for grass. It's going to become the grass. You don't get to see me shred the grass on the video because of the camera cutout. We lost a little bit of footage here and there. So I think we lost about
My fault.
2. No big whoop. The TD is important. You're not really lightening the color very much. You're just kind of making it a little bit more opaque so that the black doesn't affect the color that much. If you don't want them see-through. In this kind of a design, I'm huge on clarity and things being clear and see-through. I love that. That's like my favorite effect with glycerin soap. But for this soap, it needs to be opaque for the most part. I do end up doing something a little bit different in the end as I'm putting it together, and I unintentionally made a gradient with the color I end up with for the dirt, and it kind of gets a little clearer and clearer as it goes to the top, which I think worked in my favor, but I wasn't doing it on purpose. I was just in too much of a hurry to get some soap melted because it was gonna seize up on me, and I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want it to end up being layers that I had to stick together. I wanted it to stay liquid and get each layer on, or get the rest of the embeds added before it's set up. So, and the other reason I didn't add more colors to make up for that is I didn't think I could match it very well because it was a combo of a bunch of weird things. So I love, and there's what I lost there, that heliotrope with the bubblegum pink. If you remember, when I used the bubblegum pink, I only used half of because I poured a full cup and I used half of it, and then I came back and I added heliotrope, which made it a gorgeous color. Magenta, I guess maybe you'd call that. I don't know. It's pretty. Anyway, so the last one I did, because I like to use 5 of the sheets when I'm doing those soaps. It works well to me. With the rainbow or with any of them, 5 is the magic number
Is this
for
the
me.
fifth one?
Yeah, this is the 5th one. And
Excuse
as
me.
you see, I only used one color for that. And that's because I kind of wanted to highlight that green with the garden party. I wanted, and tie it in with the grass. I wanted a little bit more of the green to be there. I could have added, and if you want to, I could have done purple, bright neon purple or something on the sides, or, whatever color you want, peach, anything. Any color you would want in flowers. Oh gosh. Yeah. Guys, I don't know where these elbow dances are coming from. None of these are, I don't know if you saw the last one I did, but which was the first one. I'm sure there'll be more because now that I see them, I can't unsee them. I don't know what I'm doing. It's like I don't know. Oh, we are having all kinds of excitement today. So I hope you probably heard that nice big honking. I don't know what is going on in our neighborhood today, but apparently somebody's now honking. But it's not a normal honk. It's not like somebody's car. This is like a...
I don't know what it was.
I don't know. It sounds like a fire truck.
We don't even live
something.
on a major street. So.
It's very weird. Life and times in Florida. Okay, so back to this.
I was trying to think of a spoof version of that Just a Small Town Girl, but I just couldn't get it.
Yeah, that's okay. Spoofs on the spot aren't. We can't sing anyway, so we're not going to sing on here and get copyright striked.
Well, it would have been spoof words. It wouldn't have been.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so I want to backtrack a little bit because you see the little pile of powders I had there, Rasool clay and the pumice. You can add whatever exfoliants you prefer. And I had some poppy seeds out. I had some apricot seed powder. I did plan to add apricot seed powder, actually, and I forgot. So it just didn't end up in the final thing because I literally forgot to put it in there. And the poppy seeds I didn't forget. I thought they'd be too much within the whole thing. And I didn't want them to either float or sink because they're one of those that the temperature has to be perfect for. And so I ended up sprinkling those on top, which looks really super cool. And I want to also head back to, as we were just like so rudely interrupted with the honking. The other thing that was going on while on screen, I had those powders out there for the dirt soap. The dirt part of it is I'm gathering some scraps, and I am going to be remelting them. When you're making dirt soap, I mean, it can be whatever color you see the soil as in your general area or whatever. I went for a really, really dark brown, almost black, and that's what it ended up being. But in a dark soap like that, you can have scraps of soap that have mica and colorants in there because it's going to be covered up for the most part. It might influence it a little bit, but don't be afraid to melt your scraps into something that's going to be brown or black because you see that's a lot of intense color in there. There's a lot of mica going on in those scraps. I did add a few clear cubes that I also had sitting out. So a slurry is kind of a paste. This is questionably a slurry. It's a little thinner than most, but just gives you room to mush the lumps out of everything, which is really important in adding things like clays and pumice. The pumice does a pretty good job of mixing in pretty quickly. And there goes the activated charcoal. Now it's almost black. It even looks black in certain lights. This soap does, but it's really a dark brown. And I'm just kind of adding soap to it and thinning it out once the lumps are mushed. Then I'm going to add it to the clear. Please have extra ready with a design like this if you're not exactly sure, because you know how much soap your mold holds, but what you might not think about is you've also used soap that's going to be sticking up out of it. So that's part of the ounces that you've measured out, and now you don't have enough to fill the mold. At least that's what I did. I didn't take that into consideration. So, and it wouldn't, even if I did, it would be almost impossible to measure that way. It'd be a real guess. And so have cubes ready to melt. And that's kind of how I got the gradient anyway. So I kind of liked it. It worked out neat that at the top, I put it all in the same pitcher here. So it took in a little bit of the mud color and got a little clearer each time I added, which I think I only added 2 times. But anyway, here's the pour. This is the hardest part because you got to move like lightning once this hits. It's why you grate all your soaps ahead of time. By the way, to mention back to the weird little clay soap you saw me grating up, you can grate up whatever color soap you want. It can be clay. It doesn't have to be. I used clay because, again, this is supposed to be a gardener's soap, so clay is really helpful in cleaning things really well. It's mildly, very mildly, but mildly exfoliating as well. So there is that, and that's why I used a clay soap that I had. Just had an extra sitting there, wrapped up. I unwrapped it and grated part of it, and the rest of it's in my bath, and I'm using it now, and I love it. I'm trying to talk fast because this part's going so fast. This is the hardest thing. You got to keep it moving, or that soap, once you start putting a lot of embeds in, your soap is going to cool really quickly. So that is, it's a plus when you don't have a lot of time to wait around for your soap to set up, because it is going to set up more quickly than if you just had a straight on pour of a whole loaf all at once. But those embeds drop the temperature crazy quick. So that's why you see me scrambling there. And I only added 4 cubes of soap. I knew I'd need more, but I needed it now. So I needed to melt it quickly. Mm-hmm. And that's why I just threw that in the microwave. That's one of the moments I was like, I should have called Mr. Soaps and Such out here to help me melt.
Yeah,
just throw soap at him.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So, and the color on its own, you're looking, the bucket looks really gross. But when to me, once you put it in, it looks like dirt, which is what it's supposed to. And I feel like the embeds of the shredded embeds, I can't even tell you specifically what the clay or the light or neutral color is supposed to be. I'm going to say like either little pebbles, little bits of leaves, little things and bits that are in the soil. Somebody who gardens might be able to come up with it better than me, but it's just the image I had with these. And I know that when you start digging into the dirt, it's not all just black or brown. There's going to be little bits of stuff. So that's what you see with that. And then the grass. And I thought I wasn't going to have enough, but actually it turned out to be perfect. So I scramble for every little bit, because what I didn't want to happen with this is for them to all be covered up with soap. I wanted some sticking out a little bit. And so that's where I felt like I wasn't going to quite have enough. But it did. It worked out exactly. You only need a little bit coming out, because you also have the little flower bits coming out. And then you put the actual flowers in there that was a last minute addition, by the way. I wasn't planning that originally in my idea of it, but I thought it would look really cute and give a little more of an element of making sure you see, oh, this is flowers. Oh, it's a garden. So, I came up with that idea as I was starting this soap, as I was doing the chiffon sheets, the soap sheets. So, yeah, there's the last bits of glitter. Not glitter. I was going to talk about glitter. Last bits of grass. And why was I going to talk about glitter? Because this is the point where you're wrapping it up and I'm like, ooh, this could use a little glitter on top. That, because, you know me. Am I always heading for the glitter?
Yeah, probably.
Always. So I actually left the room for a second, and it was to go get glitter. And then on the table, I had already gotten out the poppy seeds because I thought I might add them in there. And I decided no on the glitter because it was a garden. And I mean, it could be dew, it could be whatever. But when I saw the poppy seeds, I was like, no, that's even better. Organic poppy seeds in the garden. It just looked, I don't know. It looked more garden-like than glitter. But that's a real switch up for me, because normally this would have been sparkly. The little flowers, I recommend, it didn't all get the footage there, but I recommend kind of putting them like back to front, standing up. You can lay them on top if you want that image to come up, but I think with the little soap sheets, it makes it more complicated for that. So I just wanted them to, as you cut the soap, vertically that you can see that it's an image of a flower in there. And of course, I was shoving them in last minute, and the soap was setting up, so I was panicking with that. So they all didn't make it straight up and down and exactly every place I wanted them to be, every, color combo. But that's why I went back, and you'll see in a minute what I'm about to do. I'll go back and add just a couple little touches of another flower on the front. And I think it really ties the whole thing together. That little trick there, by the way, if you haven't tried that, spritzing it with alcohol, the mold as you're unmolding, makes it so much easier.
I think you mean vinaigrette.
Yeah, we decided as we were getting ready to cut this thing that it was definitely a salad.
Garden salad party.
Garden salad party. And then, once you see the flowers, it's not as much, but it looked like a salad. I was like, that's the prettiest salad I've ever seen.
Are those gluten-free croutons?
Good one.
Why, thank you.
No gluten in my soaps. Not in these anyway. I don't know if there's any gluten in others, but okay. Now, I didn't get this written up there, but this is important. If you're using seeds or large particles of anything on top of your soap, you want to put your soap on its side to cut. And it did happen to work out, even though this soap is insanely tall because of all the stuff sticking out. It still fit in the Uncle Andy's and was able to cut it sideways. Otherwise, those poppy seeds are going to drag all the way down through the soap and leave these great big scratches in the fronts and backs of your soap. So I'm glad I remembered to do that, first of all. And I'm glad the soap fit in the Uncle Andy's. It's got quite a nice wide girth there for getting your soap through the little tunnel and getting to the guillotine.
That looks amazing.
Didn't it look cool? I was thrilled. I can tell you because I don't even have to tell you. I was ecstatic over this one.
She was. It was rare. It was good.
It was a rare moment.
Yes.
It was. Yeah, y'all. That's all I could think of to say. Y'all. Look at this. Yeah, exciting. So I would love for you to tell me what color you would make if you're making a garden party soap. What would you choose for your flowers? You could do an entirely different design with different flower embeds you could create from little molds or whatever. I just thought I was trying to go easy because I knew the rest of the soap was going to be just tedious, and I didn't want to have to pour in a little bitty molds over and over and over to create a bunch. I thought, let's just get out the cutters. It was much easier. And as it turned out, I think it actually was better for this design, for me anyway. And here goes our last cut. Uncle Andy's did the job beautifully. I'm not paid by him. I'm not sponsored, affiliated, nothing. I just love the cutter. You have to be extremely careful. That thing is sharp. Do not get your fingers near it.
Cool.
It was cool. So here's where I'm adding the last touches there. And I don't do it for the pictures because they kind of stick pretty good for the short term. I just stick them on there like it's a sticker, and it holds pretty well for these. But after the camera turns off, I do glue them down. I'm not with glue, but with clear soap. That's at fairly hot temperature, and you just put a drop and mush your flower in there. And if any leaks out the sides, you can either wipe it with a little lint-free cloth or something, or you can scrape it away with a knife after it sets up. Whatever you prefer, if it's a lot. But it's clear, so it doesn't show that much, and that's not an imperative thing to do. For using a soap like this, let me give you a quick little tip, because they're hard to wrap. You can wrap them. I'll probably curl some of the tops over a little bit to make them easier to wrap, depending. But when you use it, if you just kind of mush those tops down a little bit, because I used a Chiffon BONFIRE soap, which had really tall flames like that, and it worked beautifully. Like, it just kind of stuck to the top of the soap, and it just wore away just like any other soap. And I might have had one little tiny piece break off, but in the beginning, not much. So, do this at your own risk. But I'd love to see if you do make a soap like this. Please tag me and let me know. And I'd love to see your interpretation of it. This was one of my favorite soaps, I think. But I'd love to see you all using my chiffon technique in whatever way you can, in whatever way you think of. You all are super creative, so I know you can come up with different designs and ways to use this look. I've got some other things in mind for this technique that are kind of similar that I'll be doing down the road, but this was the most important one for me to get done now because, springtime is not here much longer. It already feels like summer here in Florida, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, Miss Terry.
Poor Mr. Soaps and Such. He didn't have much to talk about this time.
Oh, I love these. This is really good.
Thanks. Yeah, they were really, really cool.
That other soap we made on Sunday, because we do Saturday, Sunday filming. And the ones we did did we do 2 on Sunday or 1?
We did 1. We did this one on Saturday, I think,
Yeah.
and we did the other on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about that one. That was pretty cool. Remember?
That was fun. I do.
This is
remember.
unbelievable. It's like, look at that.
This one was, even though it
Looks
involved.
like it's got vinaigrette on it. Look at that right there. Just a little more vinaigrette, please.
It's not a salad. It's a
Italian.
garden.
It's a garden.
It's a garden. Look at that. Look at the
like
dirt.
A garden. You're right. It's a
Look
garden.
at the dirt and look at the little sprouts in the grass. I'm loving it. Well, if you have lasted this long, I am impressed and I thank you. I hope you try this soap. I hope you take your mom to tea on Mother's Day in a garden, and I hope she has fun with it, and I hope you make her a garden soap, a garden party soap, because I don't know, there's nothing more spring-like to me than a garden party soap. What do you think, Mr. Soaps and Such?
I've never heard you say that in 9 years. Just kidding.
Oh, thanks so much for being here. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, today I'm going to make 6 clay soaps and I'm going to test out the Fast Melt 3L. This is my first unboxing video. I was so super excited to be asked to review this. This was a gift from 2 Auto Tools. Thank you very much. And I wanted to see, I wasn't positive what I could do with it, but I wanted to see. I was a little weirded out by the box being partially empty. And a little concerned that maybe the melter had gotten shaken up a little bit in transport, although I will say the outer box was really sturdy. So there's, on the screen, you'll see all of the info that you need if you are interested in looking for one for yourself. I will also put links in my description box to this particular melter and anything else that I'm using. So I'm going to be opening this up, and like I said, I really was a little concerned until I got to this part. It's packed extremely well. It was not heavy. Mr. Soaps and Such had to come help because it was just packed in there so tightly. It wasn't going to go anywhere in shipping. It wasn't going to be harmed, and it wasn't. It was in great shape. So as you see, it comes with the melter as usual. Sorry, I'm always interrupting myself, and that's just me. As usual, I'm not going to be reading most of the things on the screen. I might comment on them, but I'm going to try to say the other things that you're not going to see on the screen because I can't type everything. So you're far better off listening and watching, just my opinion. But yeah, there will be some things left out. I had read somewhere in one of the reviews that the handle was difficult to turn, the spout handle, and that just is not my experience with it. Don't buy it for the mold. The mold's not the best. However, I'm pretty sure I got a decent little square out of it. I didn't use the mold except to hold my extra because I did use a little bit extra. this particular melter, and they come in various sizes. This is the smaller one, and it holds, you'll see coming up, it holds like maybe I already put it up there, 4.4 pounds. I was going to make a loaf soap, and so I only used 3 pounds, which is a little more than I need, because I always like to get a little more than I need. Any turning of that lid that looks shaky is my really bad coordination with putting lids on. That's just a thing for me. It's really easy to do. Trust me. And while this thing is lightweight, it doesn't feel flimsy at all. I was really quite pleased. So you see me putting the clays. I'm listing the clays I'm using in the 6 clay soap. It is a shave soap from Wholesale Supplies Plus, Crafter's Choice. And if you've never used this soap, it's Shave and Shampoo is the full name of it. If you've ever used this soap, well, you may know. If you haven't, just look at the ingredients. Go to Wholesale Supplies Plus. I'm not sponsored by them at all. This is my first sponsorship of any kind, and it really is just the free gift. I'm not being paid to say anything specific. I was gifted it and asked to review. So all of my answers and responses and reactions to this are completely honest. And of course I forwarded this. It didn't melt that quick. You know, I'm speeding things up so you don't have to sit and watch soap melt. It melted quite fast. This was my biggest concern with this, is the temperature. It goes pretty high, 180, something like that. I double point this out. The parts you see me touching, they're not hot. The handle's a little warm where the plastic is. Just don't touch the metal. That's hot. That is a given for any kind of melter you use. You can't touch the metal that is linked to or, connected to the metal on the inside that's very hot. It's intended to be hot. That spout is heated intentionally to keep your spout clear, to have it pour easily. It poured very easily. It cleaned very easily. I was really pleased with the functionality of this melter. It isn't really made for low melt soap. Larger majority of the soap bases have a higher melting point. And so I believe that's what it was made with that in mind. So I was worried that it was going to really mess up my soap. But it did go to 180, as you saw. What happened, I don't know if you caught it when you saw me see that number, that temperature. I just turned it off. I think if on my next batch of something I'm going to try that's a lower melting point one like this, and I will try it again with different soap bases, is that I'll probably turn it off sooner, well before it's melted. It was faster than I anticipated. So we'll see what happens with that. When I turned it off, it did stay warm enough to keep using for quite some time. One of the instructions, and please read the instructions for any type of melter or something like this that you purchase, they recommend that you use it up pretty quickly. And that's probably because it's heating to such high temperatures and you don't want to leave your soap at a high temperature for long. I think I saved myself by turning it off sooner than is anticipated and sooner than is kind of recommended for the amount of soap base I used, because the soap came out beautiful. And you'll see in the end. Here, I want to point out real quickly what I'm doing, because I didn't really I didn't really put the text of this up there. I started off with the wrong numbers in my head, because this is what I do, especially stressful times of year. My brain shuts down, and I had originally planned to do more and try to make more at once. And when I cut that back, I didn't cut back the amount of clay I wanted to use in each little bit. So I used too much. I put in basically 2, I'm going to say teaspoons, but I think my little spoon is not quite a teaspoon, my little measuring spoon. I think it's like 3/4. I put 2 of those in each thing, and really 1 would have sufficed. The first one kind of looked like paint peeling, and they all sort of do. I'm pushing boundaries with the amount of clay, because I wanted to. This is a test. It's an experiment. I maybe shouldn't have done it because it could have been part of the reason. Could have been that the soap was too hot, but honestly, it's functional soap. More than functional. So it didn't seem to affect its use as a soap. I'll get more into that later. But I really think it's the too much clay that made these a little more difficult to peel up. Plus, in all honesty, I was a little impatient because I was worried about not leaving that soap in there too long. I was kind of rushing myself. And I feel like I pulled these up a little too fast because the last one, which for some reason the camera didn't get, it cuts out every once in a while. It only stays on with the battery pack for a certain amount of time, and then you have to restart it. And or maybe if it's with the plug-in, I don't know. Either way, you have to restart it every so often. And so every once in a while, there's a little moment cut out, and it happened to be when I was peeling up the green sea clay, and which was the easiest to peel up. And I think that may have been because it was cooling off quicker. It was more cooled than the others because I had already turned the soap off. But it also may have been because I left it for a lot longer before trying to peel it up, which I should have done with all of these. So, I mean, learn from my mistakes. Do what you know is right, and you know what works for you in the past. I was basically, if you know me, you know that I have a technique I created a long time back called, it's recently named. I've used it forever, but we called it the Chiffon Technique because I was imitating a resin look that is a chiffon look. And this is the 3rd or 4th soap I've made on. This is the 3rd soap I've made a video on. I've made several other soaps using this technique, but this is the first one. This is the 3rd one I've done of this technique. So it's just another take on the Chiffon Rainbow and the Chiffon Bonfire that you may have seen me recently post. That's the one that kind of looks like fire, kind of looks like flowers. It's kind of questionable. Depends on who's looking at it. But I wanted to use the shaving base, even though it had a lower melting point, because I have plenty of it. I was not about to test something with my Premium Crystal Clear, which is my go-to soap for my art soaps. Because it's really scarce right now. And what I had to pay quite a bit for. It's one that's back ordered. It's not available on Wholesale Supplies Plus, which is the company that makes the Crafter's Choice products. And so I just wasn't willing to chance it. And I have a little bit of an excess of the shaving soap. It's not excess of what I'll use. It's just I have plenty. So I was using that. And I was so thrilled that I did because it's just a beautiful soap base. You always think of it for shaving and shampoo because that's what it's called. But honestly, it's great on your skin. I mean, most of the time things that feel good on your hair are also, a lot of those are good for your skin. This is a particularly messy video. But I really wanted to pay more attention to what I was doing with this melter than anything. And so the one thing I'll say when I opened it, because I can't keep up my talking to the video because that's my brain. But back when I was stirring, when I opened and stirred it, a couple little things. First, that spoon came with it, which is nice. You do want a long utensil like that. You don't want to get chance like splashing that really hot soap up onto you. It's not safe. I did want to say to watch if you use this, because it is melting at such a high temperature, if you stir it in between, it might stick to the heating element to the bottom floor of the melter a little bit. So I wouldn't, don't jam it. Just stir what you can and then close it and let it go, go back to work. Or at that point, what I should have done with as much of the soap that was as melted as it was when I opened to stir, I should have turned it off at that point. But seriously, no harm, no foul on this one. It did not mess up my soap. It may have had to make me work a little bit differently, and that's something else I'll talk about in the full review process at the end. I'm going to kind of mention what I feel are the benefits and the things I might change about it, or things that might make me not use it for everything. And that's the thing. I will use this. I will use this for several things. I have all kinds of projects in mind for this melter. It's when I have an industrial strength, big melter. Okay, I have one that my dad helped me purchase. Yeah, I'm over 50 and still needing help from my dad. But he helped me purchase when I was moving to some, I kind of had an opportunity to move to some wholesale accounts, but it was a time restricted thing. I had to move kind of quickly, and then it ended up a year later. I'm not even doing these accounts. But I do have, for times that I'm making large amounts, which still happens, I have an industrial strength big old soap melter. Not cheap. It's not something you want to purchase if you're just making a hobby or just selling a few here and there. It's honestly something for wholesale accounts and people making really large amounts at once. So, and I love it. It's great. It's fantastic, and it's temperature controlled. You can control the temperature of it. It has a window that you can set it at, and it's fantastic. But I'm not going to compare it to this one because it's not even in the same kind of category. This is a hobbyist or small business type of thing, and it's really convenient for me because I don't soap typically in the room where my industrial strength one is. That one's it's too big to move. For me, I have a bad back, bad neck. It would be really not at all convenient to move it back and forth. And right now, where I am soaping, I also teach voice lessons, so everything goes away. So I have to be kind of mobile with my soaping area, and at least the larger equipment has to be mobile. Like, obviously the other things I have a little box I transfer things back and forth with too. I gather up what fragrances I'm using, that kind of stuff. But I can't move that thing back and forth, and it's like I say, mostly for filming purposes. But this little thing is, easily carried by me. There's not even a question. It's like I said, it's very lightweight. It might be, you might consider it when it's full a little bit top heavy. So just be aware and have it on a stable surface, which you should anyway. It's obviously something you want to keep away from children and pets, like any soap melter, any heating surface, etc. And of course, you don't want kids and pets around your soap anyway. But I just thought I'd mention it just for out of safety reasons, because I feel sometimes those little points run by us, kind of flip through our head, and we don't particularly see. That's about the perfect temperature. It's a little hot. I'm going to say it's a little hotter than I would for these. Sorry, I'm interrupting myself again. I just looked up and saw the temperature after I poured it. It was pretty hot before I poured, and I poured it slow and sprayed it and cooled it off a little. But you see it's already melting the clay sheets. Okay, so back to the safety features. I feel like it's easy for us to overlook things like that and instructions, and just, okay, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking at this. I know what I'm doing, and move on. And then we complain when they don't work right, or, we're even worse than that, we're upset because we have like a minor tragedy or an injury or something in our house. So this is in general, I'm just recommending that you read instructions and follow them. They're there for a reason. The safety guidelines for soap and for using items like this that heat. Obviously, we're not cold. Well, some of us are cold process soap makers that do many of you do both. I don't. For many reasons. I'm not opposed to it or against it. I just can't. But it's like you're following those safety rules. You would not want to, you don't want to touch lye. You know better than that, right? And those, obviously, when soapers are new, sometimes they're learning those and don't always follow those kinds of rules to the letter, and that's where injuries happen. So this, I'm just pointing it out. I know none of you are stupid. You're smart people, or you wouldn't be making the beautiful soaps that I've seen you make. And but I just want to point out to be very aware to read through all of the instructions for this and for any other melter of any kind or hot type of heating type of equipment, anything like that. Like your maybe your heat gun for your shrink wrap, etc. So just to keep that in mind, I'll stop lecturing you on that and get back to this soap. As you saw, they were melting a little as they went in, which I kind of anticipated. One of the reasons I like to do soaps that are kind of abstract art is because it's abstract art. It gives me more wiggle room for the designs to not be perfect. I do have some soaps I make that have to have a little bit more precision. But one of the reasons I wanted to test this one is because I was pretty sure I could get a good looking soap out of it, even if the soap was a little hotter than I normally pour at. The other reason those little clay sheets are melting is because they have an overabundance of clay in them. Even when I went to each of those little cups after the first one and removed about half of what was there. So that's all on me. And I'm not sad I did it because I got a really gorgeous soap that feels great on my skin. It has a really good lather. It's a hard bar. It's set up beautifully. There's no glycerin dew. There's nothing. It almost feels like a like what you think of when you think of the low glycerin, the low sweat types of soap, or some of the detergent-free soaps are that way. Some of similar to cold process maybe after it's been cured. I stole one of these for myself. I took one of these bars. I could not resist it. First of all, I wanted to prove to myself that it was as nice of a bar as it looked, because it did. Like I said, it's set up really hard, and it would smell good, and it looked good, and had a really nice weight to it. So I just had to try it, and I wanted to make sure that the lather was good, and it was. It's gorgeous lather. It starts off big bubble, and then the more you lather with it, because it is a shave soap, it does get a bit foamy lather. It feels great on your skin. I can't tell you what it does for your skin or what you might think it might do for your skin, because it's soap and it cleans, and that's all we can say. But anybody who's used clay soaps, you might know. You might know that if nothing else, it gives a slickness to soap. They call it slip, and that is for helping to shave with. But spoiler alert, it also feels great on your skin, and it cleans very thoroughly, but does not dry my skin at all. And I have really sensitive skin that dries out pretty easily. One of the reasons I prefer glycerin soap to any others I've used is that higher glycerin content is great for my skin. So I'm at the end of the pour here, and as I'm getting ready to go to the cut, real quick little tip here. The little thing at the end, I stick that under the end if it's not even, if it's not level. I do have a level and have to level my table every time, and I'm not always so perfect about it. But oh, there. Look how clean. That's after I cleaned it. And all I did is follow the instructions, which are so simple. After you turn it off, by the way, that where that spout handle is, you have to make sure it's on or off, completely on or completely off. And at times you need it to be. When you put the soap in, you don't turn it on. You don't turn on the melter until you know that the soap is in it and the handle is at off. Then you heat it. Then you turn the handle on and you turn it back off all the way. It's the same for the cleaning process. When you've drained out all of the soap as much as will go through the spout, which was pretty much all of it, basically just left a little bit of a film. Then you make sure the handle's off because it's going to be on from draining and you won't see anything dripping. So you have to remember to turn it off. And then you pour in some water, some hot water, and you don't have to fill it. They say pour a cup. I did more because I wanted to make sure I got the sides really well. I think it was like a little small tumbler. So it's probably more like 2 cups worth. I don't know. But and I used the spoon as they kind of described in the instructions and just scraped along the edges a little bit lightly to make sure everything was off, stirred it a little bit. I closed it up. I think I turned it on for a few minutes to heat it, to make sure it was, heated and going through catching anything that maybe was still stuck to it. And I just mean like 2 or 3 minutes. I don't mean like I walked away for a long time or something. And then I turned it off and I opened the spout and it all poured out. I, and emptied that, and I emptied it until it was totally gone. When it was empty and then cool, I left the lid off and allowed it to cool completely. I came back in and just wiped it with a paper towel. And it was simple. It was really simple to clean. I hate things that are complicated to clean. So as you see, you've seen me doing the cuts here. I'm in love with this soap. I love the way it came out. The weirdness of me kind of scraping those up in it, they were harder to scrape because I used too much clay, and I probably made a couple of them a little thinner than I normally do. But they kind of gave that little bit of a curly look, I believe, to some of those. That's one of the things with the Chiffon Technique. You can control a little bit about the thickness and the shape of those, and you see I rip them a lot, and I'm doing that when I'm ripping them. I'm trying to create edges that aren't too clean because I didn't want the edges to look clean. Obviously I'm sizing them too, but I don't cut it with a knife on purpose. I'm ripping it because I want nice organic looking edges. So yeah, I did a little clap. This is how much, you don't see me do that very often. I was so happy with this soap. It's not sticky. It's not tacky. It's beautiful. So here's my basic review. I said to turn on the audio because I know some people don't necessarily listen. They're watching because maybe they're somewhere where they can't. And I only say that because there are times you ask questions that have been answered. So I'm kind of assuming that you are watching with the sound off. Yeah, nothing wrong with doing that. You just may miss some info. So the gist of it is, this is great for high melt soaps. I'm going to try this with a shampoo base I use that has a higher melt. It's also from Stevenson's, the Cindapore. I'm going to try it with that. But first I'm going to try it with some other low melt soaps, and then a different kind of Stevenson's I have that has a higher melting point. I'm gonna play with that because I think it can be altered enough to use for the lower melting point. I wouldn't use it for everything. It's not going to get rid of my microwave because I have some that are quite intricate and take too long, and you don't want to leave the soap in that long. So I feel like I'm going to be using both depending on what I'm doing. It is definitely a great tool. It was way higher quality than I thought it would be. as with anything, read your instructions, because when I see people, I always go and look at the reviews and the questions and complaints, etc. And a lot of the times you can read them and you know in your head, you're like, that's user error. They didn't read the instructions. And I mean, that's just who we are. We're in a world where we're moving fast, and we don't always have the time or take the time to thoroughly think through and look at something. I hyper focus. I overthink everything. So I'm reading instructions like 3 times. That's just who I am. And so I recommend when you're working with something new like this that you do the same. Really do your research on it and think through your melting point of your soap. You can't ignore that in any melter. Really, you can't ignore it as a soaper. You have to get used to and know what the melting points are of your different bases. And like I said, I can't wait to try some of the higher melt bases that I have in these, although I will still be using my lower melt ones as well, either in the microwave or in this if it's a quick soap and it's something I can do fast and I don't have 8,000 little embeds to do or something. So anyway, I'm hoping that you love these soaps as much as I do. I'm just thrilled with them. They definitely make great Rorschach tests, ink blot tests, if you don't know that name or that term. It's like looking at the clouds in the sky and trying to pull out the pictures. There are so many pictures in these soaps. As you'll see, I'm going to put them together in some of the pics at the end so you can kind of do your own Rorschach tests and hire your own therapist to analyze your results, because I'm not qualified to do that. But I hope you got something out of this. I hope you'll give this a try if it is something that suits your hobby, your soap habits, your soap brand that you use. And I really do think it can be a helpful tool. Like I said, I'm looking forward to using it again. And as I do, I will make notes on these things. I will probably film them more so you can also see if the little tweaks like turning it off early and things like that can maybe help you to be more efficient with how to use it properly. I could not have been happier with the way these soaps came out. I honestly did not expect to get such a great result. I thought they would melt a little too much, and they melted a little, but I really like the look. It just kind of colors the background just a little, and it didn't muddy, didn't all turn brown. So I hope there's something that can be gained both in soap techniques and in just your thoughts on what tools you're using and what might be easier for you. I will say it was really fast melting. It melted, I don't know, it melted 3 pounds in no time at all. All I did between the time I started and turned that on and the time you saw me stir it the first time was put little spoons of clay in each cup. That's all I did. I didn't do anything else. So that being said, that was not a lot of time. Even though you know, there's some speed in here a little bit. It's sped up a little bit so you don't have to like watch me go painstakingly slow with things. But there's it, you know, that. So here's step 1 of your Rorschach test. There's a couple of them I saw a butterfly in, so I wanted to try and see if it did when I put them together. You'll see more in here. Here's my Lightbox PICS. If you're here for this long, I thank you so much. I am excited to say that I am now a YouTube partner with the first level, so you can leave me a super thanks if you want. That means you pay to have your comment highlighted, or you can leave some kind of an animated thing. I'm not sure on all of that, but I was excited to be accepted and excited that I had 3,000 watch hours. That's all because of you. I can't thank you enough for your support. And please leave me any questions you have in the comments. I'm happy to answer, highlighted or not. Make sure you write down your results of your Rorschach test. See what you can find. See what you see. There's some really interesting little shapes in here. And this isn't even all of the pictures I took. I didn't want to bore you with too many. But I hope that you see some great things. I hope you try a soap like this using more clay than you're supposed to, because it really can result in a wonderful soap. I kind of think these last ones look like Chinese writing stone. That's my opinion. Okay. Thank you so much, and I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks. Bye. Hey everyone. I'm going to be making some ribbon candy soaps today, and I hope you'll join me. This is a fun project and one that I am doing for stocking stuffers for my family. I'm going to be showing most of the colors, etc. up there. If you don't catch them and can't pause it to see what I'm using, I will have links in my description box. This is just kind of for fun, playing around, experimenting. I've never done this style soap, and I wanted to do it today. It reminded me, it's kind of using my chiffon rainbow or chiffon bonfire technique that I make, the little thin sheets of soap. And I thought, I wonder if I could make those look like ribbons. And so, as you'll see in a minute, the main difference between the sheets I make, the soap sheets I make for my chiffon soaps, and these is it's a little more controlled as far as the shape goes. With the others, it doesn't matter so much. I'm going for an organic look, not a specific strict shape. But these, and it's really not even strict on here. I'm kind of estimating everything, but I do want it to look, as you'll see when I'm shaping this, I do want it to look like a rectangle. And but I'm not measuring specifically. I'm not pulling out a ruler and a T-square and all the good stuff. You're welcome to do that if you want super precision. I am just using my mold, you'll see in a minute, as a guide, kind of for where, how wide is it? Remember to use that bottom of the mold, not the top. I can't really show you how I'm doing that because you can't see underneath the mold. While you're kind of watching me create a rectangle, and as you see, I'm just eyeballing it because it doesn't need to necessarily be perfect. I want to point out that you'll see some sparkle in this, in these little sheets I made. And while I did list the colors in text, in the text boxes, wow, I wasn't necessarily including the glitter. It's not really glitter. It's a biodegradable type of glitter, and sparkling mica it's sometimes called. There's a name for it, and again, I forgot to look it up and put it on the screen, but I can give you names of different companies that make them. All the mica companies that I know of have some form of these. They're a synthetic mica, but it's the same molecules creating it. It's just created in a lab rather than having children hunt for it and dig it up. This one right here, Sunshine Sparkle. Oh gosh, is it Sunshine Sparkle or Sparkle Sunshine? I'm not sure, but it's from Mad Micas, and I will leave a link. I am an affiliate, so if you purchase any of these micas or anything through any of my affiliate links that I put in there for Mad Mica specific micas, I will receive a small percentage of a kickback without it costing you anything additional. But that being said, that Sparkle Sunshine, that is one of the types of micas I'm talking about. It looks like glitter. It's really not. It's a synthetic biodegradable mica. But the reason I was even bringing that up is because I added some to the micas that didn't have that kind of sparkle. Because I want the ribbons, you're gonna see very little of the ribbon. We're basically going to be looking at the thickness of the ribbon when you cut it in the soap, because I'm going for a ribbon candy design, so you're wanting a wavy pattern as you saw me kind of fold up that red one first. And I wanted to show the beauty of the micas, and it's kind of hard to see the pretty metallic, pearly, sparkly looks they have in that small of an amount. So I wanted to add a little fun, a little flair. You'll notice, if you know me, you'll notice I'm going to add sparkle where I can. So I added in, not to this one, I didn't add anything to this one, it's just Sparkle Sunshine. But in the True Red and in the other colors I've used that are not, that don't inherently have this glitter in it, or synthetic mica in it, I added a synthetic mica like Sparkle Plenty from Mad Micas. Snowflake Sparkle, I think, is Nurture Soap's version. I'm not even sure. There's so many different types. Diamond Sparkle. There's a bunch of different types of these. Like I said, I believe all of the companies that I've purchased from, the professional soaping companies, at least the larger ones, and like I say, any I've purchased from, all have some of these types of micas, synthetic micas. They are so much fun, and they add a different dimension and depth to already beautiful color micas that usually, unless you buy a matte, they're going to be a little bit shiny or pearly or sparkly in some way. This boosts that look a lot. As you can kind of see here as I'm flattening this out, creating the soap sheets, you can really, the sparkle shows up pretty well in that way, which, I mean, there's a lot of other applications that can have. You might think of lots of other ways you can use these where they will show up a little bit better. That sparkle will really show. Like in a chiffon soap, like in my Chiffon Rainbow or my Silk Rainbow. Back to real quick there, when I first started making the little sheets here for this one, I didn't really go into detail about what I'm doing with the sheets of soap once I've cut the rectangle. First of all, I am guesstimating that rectangle to be double the length of my mold. My mold, the one I used for this, it's almost a 4-inch cube. Like, it's more than 3.5, but it's not quite 4 either. So I'm kind of just guesstimating that I want it to be at least at least double that width, or length, or whatever you want to call it, because it's about, close to the same every direction. It should be, as it's a cube, but it's not exact. I don't know if you remember in elementary school or middle school or any kind of an art class where you were just having fun and folding paper, but it's a fan fold. The main difference being, or an accordion pleat, that type of thing, the main difference is you're not pressing together. You're not creating sharp edges. You want them to stay round. So that is, that's basically the way you're folding it back and forth. You're just trying to keep the size even. That's how you know when to turn the next one. You want it to stay about the curls, the little waves, to stay about the same height and the same dimensions, so that it kind of lines up. Guess what? If they're not, I don't really think it's going to matter. Like I said, nothing here was done precisely. I was just measuring against what I was doing and eyeballing at that. So I really don't think if your accordion fold has one of the little waves that sticks up more than the others, I really don't think you're going to notice that much. And I don't think it's going to matter even if you do notice it, because it's still going to be a really cool looking soap. Me and my forgiving designs, that's what I really like to do. Yes, I do some precision designs, but I really prefer to do something that gives me the wiggle room to not be perfect. I am a perfectionist, which is, I guess, why I choose designs like this, because it doesn't have to be perfect. And so that makes me feel less pressure to be perfect. I just want it to look cool or look nice, you know. I do want it to look like ribbon candy. So if it went totally off the charts, I would have been upset. I wasn't upset with these at all, though. They're not perfect. They don't come out looking like perfect ribbon candy bought from a store. But they do look cool, and I believe they give the image very well. This one, there's a fun little bit here I will show you. It's a chance to show you some troubleshooting. It didn't spread. I had a fan on that was trying to kind of cool things faster right there. Did you see me rip it at the bottom? So I went from the other end. And now I'm going to show you my quick repair for this. It's very easy to repair. Now, you still have to be careful with it or you'll rip it again. But if you just put a little bit of hot soap right there, you can seal that seam, and certainly long enough to get it folded and into the soap if you're not. And I honestly, when I was doing the accordion pleat or the fan fold, whatever you want to call it, I wasn't really paying attention to where that repair was. So it wasn't like I was being super careful. I was like, well, if it repairs it, it does, and makes it look nice. If it rips, it's okay too. Because one of the other pieces did rip when I put it in. You'll see on the cut of it. It's not necessarily that it ripped. I believe it just overheated a little bit. My first bit that I poured of my base of this soap, which we'll talk about in a second, I had it a little too hot, and I got a little impatient. Instead of waiting longer for it to cool off, I wanted to get started. I also didn't want it to be too cool as I put in the embeds, because I was really hoping to avoid catching air bubbles, and I was pretty successful at that. I think there's a little bit of a trick to it that I'll talk about when we get there. Both the Crazy Eyes and back a few at the Snake Island, both of those I had, because I pre-mixed them with the alcohol in these, and I used probably less than half a teaspoon of everything combined, meaning that glittery mica plus the regular color, about half a teaspoon of each, I believe. I mean, not of each, altogether. I added a touch of maniacal pea from Mad Micas. There's a touch of that green in both of the other greens I used. It was such a small amount. I didn't think it was worth trying to cram it into the text and list it. It didn't change them that much. I was just going for a tiny bit of a brightening effect, which I think worked really nicely with the Crazy Eyes. I don't think I had added enough to make a difference to the Snake Eyes. It almost, in some of the pictures and in some of the footage, I mean, you can see it's green when it's laid out here for sure, the darker one, the Snake Island. But in the soap itself, it almost looks black. It's a little darker than I wanted. But in person, it's like a really dark green, an extreme dark green. You can see that in person a little easier. But in the photos, which really don't matter, I didn't do a great job on the photos this time. I'm not putting them on my website. Like I said, these are from my family. They were already begging for them when they smelled the fragrance oil before they even saw the end results. And then they really loved the end results. So I will be assisting Santa in filling the stockings this year. And they will likely find something like this or exactly this in their stockings. And most of them won't be watching these anyway, so I'm not so worried. And Mr. Soap and such already knows he's getting one, so because he asked for one because he really wanted it. The smell is so good. Don't eat the soap. That's a very big recommendation. They do smell like you want to eat them. That Buttermint Candies fragrance is delicious smelling. But it is still soap. So I'm just kind of playing. You can see these are very pliable. I did not. Sometimes if I'm wanting something to be pliable in a soap, I occasionally will add just a tiny bit of glycerin. I did not do that with these, and boy, they still stayed pliable. That part of that I think is that they're just so thin. So here we go with, this is how you make additional ribbons, like striped ribbons. This is how I make them anyway. There's probably other ways to do it. I'm hoping you kind of saw me. I didn't highlight it necessarily, but I poured a little bit into the rectangle there in the rectangle mold each time I prepared a color for creating the soap sheets. And the reason I poured it in the rectangle first is because that, if you're layering, my recommendation to you is pouring it hot. There are many other tips and tricks. You can scrape them. And I didn't really want the look of the scraped. Sometimes you can see it in larger soaps and larger designs and stuff. It's harder to see that if you score it a little bit, and you can score it just a very little bit to where it doesn't show. But I spritzed it with alcohol before, which also is a type of scoring it because it does create a slightly uneven surface in there. And it helps them to adhere together. But pouring it hot does too. You don't want to pour it so hot that it's going to melt the layer underneath. You see, I think 2 of these came apart. But considering the amount that I'm twisting them to get the design I wanted, I'm actually surprised that only 2 of them came apart. So, and I think toward the end, one of them was a little cooler, and I was telling myself, well, that's going to come apart. And it sure did. So now we're moving to the base soap of the main soap of this design. I did create all the ribbons I was going to use for this. Those were fun. Those are really fun, by the way, and you can use them in many other things. I should have added a picture in at the end of another soap I made with a rainbow ribbon, but I forgot to do that. So someday maybe I'll recreate that soap. It was really pretty. It's in some of the soap groups if any of you feel like really digging for it. It was a long time ago. But this is the Crafter's Choice detergent free, I think. I think this one was the detergent free coconut milk base, soap base. And it's one I hadn't tried and wanted to try. So this was one I wanted to be a really white soap too. And I have a lot of other white soap bases from Crafter's Choice, not affiliated with them. I just love their product. Their soap bases particularly. I buy other things there, but mainly for the soap bases. And then you get free shipping if you get over 25, free shipping. There is a handling fee, but that definitely encourages you to get some of their other products too if you're already purchasing soap base from them. At least it does for me. And they're quality products. They really are. Anyway, I have and love their Moroccan argan oil soap, their baby bee buttermilk. Oh, they have some really, really beautiful bases, both detergent free and premium, that are really, really nice. But some of the whiter types of bases, like the argan oil, is the one I was specifically thinking of, but the buttermilk as well. And I think the 3 butter does it a little bit. They're a little bit ivory. They're not pure white. The goat's milk has a really nice white look. And you can always add a little bit more TD, titanium dioxide. It will brighten it up. But I didn't want to deal with that, and I had this just a little sample tub, a 2-pound sample of the coconut milk sitting around waiting to test it because I hadn't tried it. And I thought, I want a really nice bright white for this. And I did. Notice that I am putting one side down and then the other. That is how I'm avoiding catching bubbles underneath. I'm watching carefully as I press it down in that the air all escapes the other side. So because they're super thin, words, and a little see-through, you can kind of see where the air is coming out. Yes, I'm making a mess. That is kind of who I am. I'm always art over mess, art over neatness, I'm going to say, because the mess doesn't matter as much to me if it's, going to create a beautiful end product or something that I want to use or sell or what have you. But like I said, this one's not being sold. It's family only. And I had to add a little bit of glitz to the top because that is who I am. These are the biodegradable stars. I forget the name of them, but you might be able to see it on the screen. The screen I'm watching while I do the voiceover is a little smaller, so I can't quite read what the package says there. But I'll leave a link, of course. I know they have a very specific name for their little stars. It's really cute. And then I wanted to add a tiny bit more glitter, so I added some more of the, oh, here comes the fun part. I added some into the Mystic biodegradable glitter. So this is a fun part. Here we go. Ever rip a mold in the middle of making a soap video? Well, this is my first time ever ripping a mold at all. I have to say, I'm not that surprised. I kind of mistreat this mold quite a bit because I almost have to unroll it to get it out easily. But it's one of the first molds I ever bought. 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not even sure. But I've had it for a very long time. It was very cheap. And it's gotten a lot of use. So and when I looked at the other corners, they were starting to give out too. So it was just time. I've never, like I said, never had a mold rip on me or damage in some way like that I couldn't use it. But there's a first time for everything. I do plan on getting a different mold to replace it because I want one that actually is a 4-inch square. And I want one of the more, there are some that are a little, that I've seen, similar to the style that Brambleberry makes. I might even get one there. I'm not sure. But they're a little sturdier. This one bows out on the edges and on the sides. And you'll see that when the soaps are cut. They're really bowed. And sometimes I fix that and sometimes I don't. And because these are going to my family, I promise you they do not care. They're just going to, use the soap and try not to eat it. Yeah, so I won't be making any more sample soaps or get to experiment in my little square until I replace that, and I will have to do that pretty soon. But I think these came out really cool. I had a lot of fun making them, and I show them off a little bit here to you. I'm gonna I do have a few Lightbox pictures, not a ton, but I show you some of the other things here I did with the leftover ribbons because there's so many different things you can do with this type of soap embeds. As you've seen, you've seen a variety of things I've done with the soap sheets, the chiffon design, and this is yet another take on that. But also the little striped ribbons right there. That I had a lot of fun with those, and because I had a few left over, I had to play with it a little bit and you see, it's far from perfect. There's the broken little red piece because I put it in too hot. Didn't even hold its perfect little accordion pleat or ribbon candy rolls or waves or whatever you want to call it. It's not perfect, but it definitely gives the impression of ribbon candy, which is all that matters. It gives the idea, and the colors give the impression of Christmas and the holidays, and the buttermint candy smell definitely gives the impression when you smell and look at it at the same time. It definitely looks like a Christmas treat for sure. And I know real ribbon candy is not a minty scent in general. They're kind of a plain fruity, plain sweet scent, not scent, flavor. I would probably liked it a lot better had it been this like buttermint kind of flavor because yummy. But anyway, I thought they came out really cute. I'm trying in these ending close-ups here just to show you a variety of looks at once. Sometimes when you see that, it's so that I can get a I can grab a still picture from these. And I wanted to make sure to show the top because I think that's part of the coolest part of it. It is, I'm using two completely different techniques here to show different designs you can make with a ribbony kind of look. So I was real happy with how those came out. I wished I had kept them a little more curled before I threw them on top, but I still think they came out cute. So here's what else I did. Here's what I did with the leftovers. I had to play because they were there and they were leftovers, so I wanted to use them. I love the way this Christmas tree came out, and I believe this is the one that Mr. Soaps and Such wanted because he was thrilled with that one. He thought it looked so cool, and I can't disagree with him on that. I love when you can see neat design embeds like that, and still it's clear and you can see through the whole thing, and part of why I love Melt and Pour. And then this one with the little garland on it. That was done using the ones that broke apart. Now, I didn't use the green ones yet, and I still have a little piece of that, but I thought I put them to good use. It does look like a little garland on there, and there's a couple of little glitter stars on the top too, and a little extra glitter in the base, in the clear base itself, because I can't. And I kept these the same fragrance because I had it out and was using it. And like I said, these aren't something I was putting up on my website, just something I was playing with. So I did this for gifts for family and friends. I did this for ideas for you, for stocking stuffers, or for future ideas, different ways to use the chiffon technique. I'm hoping that something in here has inspired you. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you have not already done so. It really helps the channel grow quite a bit. I will be showing you a few pics in a second. They didn't come out that great because the clear ones especially got some glycerin dew on them, and that's just the way it is in Florida. It will come off, but I didn't notice it before the pictures were taken, so sorry about that. You can see in the close-ups, you'll notice that I do go in really close. You see the glitter there. Isn't that cool? I think that looks really neat when it shows up. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your time with me and allowing me to share some designs with you, and hopefully some new techniques that you may not have seen before, or new ways to use older techniques that you might have seen before. I'm hoping you have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon. Thanks. Bye. Hey, everyone. Using my best tip ever. This is how to use a lace impression mat with Melt and Pour soap. Today, we're going to make a lace soap using my chiffon technique. If you are not familiar with my chiffon technique, I will attach a video at the end that will give you a clue what it's all about. But you'll find out a little bit as we go forward here. I've got most of the products used, etc., up in the information and the text. So keep a watch on that. But as I will tell you in a moment, be sure to have your sound up. Keep your sound up because most of the instructions are going to be through me yammering on and on and on. So what is a lace impression mat, you might ask? Well, it is a piece of silicone, a flat sheet of silicone that has a texture to it, and they were originally made or created for bakers and cake decorators, etc., to make designs in frosting. And then you find people in the clay world using them as well, particularly the baking type of clay like Sculpey, etc. It has become popular with many different mediums, I believe, because they're pretty cool and they're not too difficult to use. They can be a little weird to use in Melt and Pour soap. Soapers use them all the time as a lining in their molds to create texture. But I, being the strange person that I am, I want the design on the inside of the soap, because with melt and pour, we can use clear soap. And that means that the design, you really want to see it throughout. And that's part of my favorite part, or my favorite things about using melt and pour soap, is the clarity. If you've followed me for any length of time, you will have probably found that out. You can make a chiffon style soap, or a chiffon soap, using that technique in a soap that is not clear. But I wouldn't recommend it with the lace technique, just because you won't see the details of the lace. And boy, are there details. This impression mat, when used properly with melt and pour soap, really, really shows the detail. It looks like lace. When you're looking at it in the soap, it looks like I took lace and embedded it in clear soap. Well, I didn't. One of the important parts, I'm going to try to go with a little bit of what at least I'm seeing. I don't know if we're caught up together, but one of the important parts about this lace chiffon technique, or chiffon lace technique, is this part I'm doing right here. And that is, you're going to scrape first. There's lots of important parts, I guess, to this one, but the scraping is important. You want to get as much soap off. You're really trying to push the soap into all the little design crevices. And that's why I spritzed with alcohol first, is because it helps soap move into little teeny tiny crevices. And then I poured the soap pretty hot, about 130 to 133. And then I scraped it off. So I'm scraping off as much as I can while pushing it into the impression mat. And then, as you see with the clear that I'm pouring over top, now I'm not scraping. You notice I'm not using the same tool. I'm using kind of like a little plastic popsicle stick, or silicone popsicle stick. I'm not sure actually what it is made of. But I think it's plastic. But I'm not scraping now. I don't know if you can tell from the movements I'm making, but I'm more like spreading. You kind of want to spread a thin layer of that clear across the whole mat. You want to get every little spot that you can. It doesn't need to look perfect. If you need to put a little bit more in some areas and respread a little, and you get kind of a little bit of funkiness going on, it doesn't need to be perfectly smooth and perfectly clear. You want it as clear as you can. You want it to match whatever the clear base you're using. So you do want to fragrance it so that it's the same, because that makes it kind of disappear when you put it in the clear soap, which we will be doing this in a loaf mold in a while after we make all of our embeds. The importance of that step of the clear over top is, well, there's a couple of different things. One of them is, so as you can kind of see here, as I'm removing this first sheet, well, two sheets. I kind of do two at once. It's really one sheet, but I do two colors on each sheet. You could do an entire sheet of one color, but then make two loaves out of it. But this is the way I'm doing it. It works well for the soap I'm doing. But you see it peels off better. If you happened to watch last week's video, it didn't peel up so well. It was more peeling up scraps of lace. It wasn't easy, and it didn't look good. The soap I ended up with looked good, but it didn't look like lace, particularly on the inside of the soap. It was too thin, and the soap was too hot. So there were two factors at work that kind of messed me up. But we're fixing that this time, because we're making the overall layer thicker by adding that clear. So it gives it a little bit more protection and a little bit more substance to it. But it also helps it to peel up easier, more evenly, and it looks like a full strip of lace, or sheet of lace. So as you see me kind of working at these to peel them, they work best starting from the corners. I'm hoping you saw me score a line down the middle. I'm basically just scoring. You don't want to cut your mat, so don't use a super sharp knife. You could even use something that isn't a knife. maybe even like a toothpick. You just want to get through the layers of soap. So that's what I did. I just happened to use kind of a dull little knife. Anyway, Mr. Soaps and Such says hi. The peeling up of it is much, much easier with this clear layer on top. But I also want you to note that the edges are going to be the hardest. Start at the corners, whether that's an outside corner or one of the inside corners where you scored the soap, because that creates, 4 more corners of on that sheet. So starting at the corners helps it to get going, but be aware as you're lifting the edges, you might have a little bit of the clear wanting to lift off of the colored soap. And if that happens, don't panic. Just kind of bend the mold back a little bit and unmold it, and then keep kind of working it up. It will stick to that clear. If you pour it really cold, you might have a lot more problems with that. You might have just a clear layer of soap peel right off and all of the color still in the impression mat. So I poured about 133 for the colored layers. You pour it hot, and after you spritz with alcohol, don't forget it, because I've forgotten it several times. Trust me, it works. If you watch when I pour on this soap, you can see it spreading. You can see how it spreads more easily throughout the design. It kind of looks like it's branching out. Well, it is, because it's going into all the little crevices, and it works much better if you do that at a hot temperature. By the way, 133 is hot for Crafter's Choice soap. It might not be hot for your soap. Stevenson's, that's a pretty cool temperature. So you have to know your soap, and you have to know the temperatures. That's why this is not going to be a soap I put in my beginner series. It's not a beginner soap. You have to know your soap's melting point, and preferably be kind of aware of how hot you need to take it for different types of embeds and such. You're scraping. This is a second demo of one of these. So I used a metal pastry scraper or pastry cutter, something like that. It's never been used for pastries. It's only been used for soap. You could even use one of those metal cutters, because it's very similar to that, and scraping as much as you can. That works best. Then you notice I don't use the same tool, although I kind of mess up once and grab that tool and start to use it. Then I remember, no, you're not scraping, you're spreading. And then so I use the little popsicle type stick looking thing to spread. You could also use your silicone spatula to spread it. I use the longer popsicle stick because it gives you more, you've got a little bit more contact with it, with the thing, and you can spread it faster and further. I hope that makes some sense. But you want to work fast with these two, with all of this part of it here, because of the temperature limits. If it starts cooling off on you, you're going to have problems. You're not going to have the clear not sticking. I recommend spritzing with alcohol once before you pour, once after you scrape, gently, not too much, but you want to spray it after. And then you want to pour your clear and spray it once again. And that's going to help cool it faster so you can remove it quickly and keep moving. And it's also going to help the layers adhere on the one in between. Just don't overspray. After you do the colored and scrape, don't go crazy with the alcohol. A light misting is perfect. And then you pour the clear, and then you spritz again. Also, the last spritz is going to get rid of any bubbles that may have formed or that may decide they want to form. It'll prevent that. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. There are probably going to be some bubbles when you pour the final product, when you do the final pour into the soap loaf mold. But if you're careful, you won't get many. It's just you've got a very textured piece of art here going in, and so you might gather a little bit of bubbles. The design of pouring the clear will take away half of that texture. So you only have one side that's textured. And as you see me peeling here, you notice I did the edges first on the front end, and sometimes I stop and do the edges at the side, at the longer side. And when you see that happening, that's because it's either starting to not want to come up and it's going to rip, or the color is going to separate from the clear a little bit. If it seems like it's separating, like I said, keep it together, go back and bend back the mold so the color comes out, and then just pull both of those layers at the same time. It will adhere eventually, in quick enough for you to be able to put it into the soap. But anyway, oh, I lost it. Oh, here's another thing you could do. Now, I honestly was just too lazy to do this, and tired. And I don't think it's necessary after having done this soap and after having it come out the way it did, because I've already seen the results, of course, because I'm doing a voiceover, because I cannot talk and soap at the same time. If you can, more power to you, but I can't. A quick note before I give you the other little thing you could do if you wanted to, and that is, yes, I do heat my soap up in between. I don't leave that in there. If there's a skin on the top of your soap, or if after you stir that skin, it doesn't melt in pretty quickly, and your temperature is at a point where it's going to start setting up, I'd heat it up. Do you heat it up for 30 seconds? No, you don't. Look at the small amount I have in that bucket or pitcher. It's a very small amount, so I heat it up in 10 to 15 second increments like that. 10 is usually fine, unless you have maybe a little bit more than that, or unless it's completely solidified, and then you'd want to go 15 seconds at a time until it's liquefied, stirring in between, of course. But okay, so my other idea was, and this is where I was too lazy to do it, and I don't think it's necessary, but if you wanted to try it, you could, once you remove the lace sheets from that, you could flip it over, and you could add another layer of clear to the back. It's going to make it a little less flexible because it's a thicker layer, but it's also going to it might make it a little bit more, not impermeable, but less resistant. There we go. A little more resistant to melting if your soap is too hot. And I just recommend being careful measuring your soap temperatures, because that is the clue. That is the key. Last time, the one I made that I messed up and melted all the lace in, it's not that I wasn't careful, it's I had the wrong temperature in my head. I use so many different temperatures depending on the project I'm doing that I sometimes get confused, especially when I haven't done a project in a long time. And it has been quite some time since I've done a Chiffon Technique soap, which I do have a few more coming up. So keep your eyes out for that. I have some new ways to use this technique that I'm really excited to try. But when you place the embeds, the soap needs to be cool enough to not melt them. And for me, that temperature lies about the perfect temperature, lies around 127. I know these temperatures seem very super specific and all that. You could probably get away with 126 to 128, maybe even 129 if you're careful, especially maybe if you get that other side of the clear on. I want you to notice there was only one tiny little spot at the edge of one of the pieces of lace that had kind of ripped away from the clear, or just been a point of it, a very edge. It was the edges sometimes will get a little bit less of the clear on it. It still may be covered in clear, but it's a little thinner sometimes. It's hard to get all of it perfectly even. Again, I'm just scoring with this very dull knife, and I'm sorry to distract myself with that, but I just happened to notice that. That's just a reminder. So anywhere between 126, 128, maybe 129 if you've got the extra layer. One little spot that started to melt, and it's very subtle, and you can probably only see it at the end in the close-ups. The close-ups this time are video only. I did not use my light box this time because my phone the front of my phone has been cracked to smithereens. And so right now I'm not using that for a camera. And so it made it harder to use. So I just did some close-ups with the video, and you'll get a really good view of them. And it just kind of keeps me from doing some more artistic type pics, because that's really not possible when you're just doing screen caps from your video. So this little spot here, you saw I kind of was working around it. I recommend doing that. If you have a spot that's even just not coming up properly, work around it. Go to another area and come at it from another angle. That was almost a little hole there, and it didn't matter. If I had just kept yanking right there, it might have ripped it, and it didn't, because I was careful and went back. So anyway, the temperature is highly dependent on what soap base you're using. I know I've said it, and I've even said it within this video, but I'm going to stress it again, because a lot of times I will have somebody come back later and say, "What temperature did you pour at?" And it really, that's not a full question. It always is going to depend on the soap base you're using, the technique you're using. So many factors play into it. So be aware of that. Know the temperature that is your soap's melting point. That is the key. You have to know that. That's where you base everything from. That's your starting point. Okay, it starts to melt at this temperature. I have to take it a little bit higher than that if I want to add colorant and I want to add fragrance to my soap. You have to take it a little higher, because the minute you add colorant, especially if you've dispersed it in alcohol, what's it going to do? It's going to cool that soap quickly. And you add fragrance oil, that's going to cool it a little bit as well. So keeping that in mind, you have to take it past it, and then you have to have your digital thermometer. Don't stick it right down close in. You want to keep it about 8 inches from the top of the melted soap, and you want to hold it steady for a moment. You also want to stir as you're doing that, or right before. Stir right before and stir up the bottom, because some of that gets, the top wants to form a cool layer across the top, and it will mask the hot underneath. So stir it right before, then pull your stick to the side quickly and pull the trigger on your thing, on your thermometer, and hold it for a second, and then look. That's the best way to get a proper estimate of your soap temperature. So when you're plunging a bunch of embeds in, the more embeds you use, the quicker it cools. And this does cool fairly quickly, because I put them in very fast. I'm working fast in this. All I'm doing with this here is I'm getting them in order of the way I want, and then I wanted to be able to get a picture of them like that because it looked really cool. So that's basically what I was doing there. Now I'm folding these. And like I said, I'm getting ready to be plunging them into clear soap. And so I want to have everything ready. I want them trimmed to the length I want. I went a little past the length of my mold, because you want them to curl around a little, snake around just a little bit. You can't try to do it too much, or they're just not going to fit in there, and you're going to struggle with that. But I think probably about a 1/2 inch past my mold length, maybe a tiny bit more. I just estimated, and I just trimmed it like that. And as you see, I'm getting ready to melt, and I come right back with it melted, because guess what? I don't want you to sit there and watch me melt soap. It's boring. 30-second increments until the end. If you have some lumps in the bottom, just a few little bit, you might want to wait. Take the temperature of the soap you have going, and if it's pretty hot and you don't want to take it hotter, wait. Just wait and stir. Add your fragrance, stir. If you need to pop it back in for a few seconds, you can. You can always pop it back in for 10, 15 seconds. And especially after, I know people freak out about putting it in the microwave when you've added your fragrance oil, but you can do it if you're not overheating it. You're just popping it back in, and actually it gets the temperatures to a better place where that oil mixes in a little bit better. Sometimes if your soap is too cool, it can prevent that fragrance oil from blending in properly, and you get less clarity. It gets a little foggy. To make a quick note of the fragrance oil, because I added it in the beginning and didn't talk about it, it is Solar Sunburst. It's one of the ones from Wholesale Supplies Plus, their spring and summer collection, and it's very bright. It's fruity, but it's very exotic type of fruity. So I can smell. I'm. This is not anything like the notes that they say. I'm going by what I smelled. Um, I smell a big citrusy vibe, but not overly sweet citrusy. It does have a little bit of sugariness to it, but it also has like kind of a guava or passion fruit or papaya, one of those fragrances that has just those very unique notes to it. And then a tiny bit of florals. They say hibiscus, I think, was the floral that this was based on. I really like it for summer vibes. It was really nice, and I really appreciated that once I stirred it in, even though the oil in the beginning, you might have seen me show it in the little pipette, because it did have a little color, which kind of freaked me out. I like to use totally clear when I'm using clear, but it does not. Used in small amounts, it does not color your soap, discolor your soap. It's it actually is very clear in the final product, and I don't add blue. Bluing is a trick that many of you know I have used and you have used in the past that can kind of balance out if your soap base is looking a little bit on the yellow side. Did not have to do that with this at all. So I'm pouring this at 127. I meant to show you with a thermometer, but I don't know. I thought I did, and I guess I didn't get the right angle. But it was 127 when I poured, just because I remember aiming for that and waiting for it to get down to that. So here I go. I plunge one in and then two following immediately. And I do a tip, like an edge, a corner, and then push down and kind of scoop it as you do. That'll help avoid some of the bubbles, kind of like you're scooping soap into that folded part. You do want to fold it, and I recommend putting the fold at the bottom, but don't fold it like pinch it. You want it to be like a loop. Give some room in there. And you also want to, as you're doing the pour, this part is quick. You got to move fast. You want to separate the layers here and there when you can. Make little pockets, make little curls around. You want to be able to pour soap in between each, not just each color, but each layer. So each color has a double layer because you folded it. You want to try to go with in between those. You may not be able to every single one because, like I said, it's going to start setting up the minute you put it in the soap. I did add a tiny bit of a glitter mica in just the second part of the soap. I didn't want it all the way through because if you add too much, you can mess with the clarity of a soap like this that you want to be very clear. So I added I think it was about 1/8 of a teaspoon, very, very tiny amount. That was just guesstimating, but I only added it to the second part that I put on top. And that was not something that was crazily sped up or skipping time or anything. I went right into pouring that and separating those layers and pouring down into the layers as best I could for this pour, because it is a fast pour. Again, not necessarily a beginner project. It's not necessarily hard. It's just easier if you've had a little bit of experience with your soap base. So I trimmed it, gave it a little haircut like I did with my original chiffon soap. You could leave those up there if you want. I didn't want to this time. And I have, if you want to check out somewhere I did leave it up, check out my Chiffon Bonfire and my Garden Party soap. Both of those use the same technique, minus the lace, just sheets of soap. And so I didn't have to use an impression mat. I pour it out on my plain old silicone mat, and you will see hopefully you will get a chance to see my other chiffon soap designs and get a look at what I'm doing with that. But this one was using the lace, so it was a little bit different. I didn't want the tops to be puffy or um, have little bits coming out. It looks good for some. I didn't want it for this. But this is the bottom. When I unmolded it and saw what the bottom looked like, I almost jumped up and down. I was so excited. I was so happy. First of all, look at that clarity. I hope that the video shows it as well as I can see it right here. I'm looking at a small version for editing and adding my voiceover, so it's not always exact, but man, is it clear. And I mean, doesn't it look like I just folded up a bunch of lace and shoved it in some clear soap or resin? To me, that's what it looks like. And like I said, I was so thrilled with the outcome. I did notice, and you may notice as well, I got my colors out of order. And it doesn't matter. I don't care. I wasn't even going to have them in exact rainbow order, but they were going to be in rainbow order, but kind of not starting where it usually starts, not starting with the red or the pink and ending with the violet, because I wanted those together. So, but I should have reversed the group that I had in my hand with the aqua green and yellow should have gone on the other side of the pink and blue and violet. Didn't matter. It's still pretty, so I didn't care. I'm just pointing it out for those of you who might want an exact rainbow look. Be aware of where your layers are before you shove them into the soap mold or into the base. I wanted to point out something else about color, and again, I'm not disappointed with it, but you might, if I did it again, I would use, instead of Garden Party, I would probably have used Crazy Eyes. I did not realize how close to the yellow that Garden Party was going to look in that thin of a layer, and I probably should have, but I didn't. I still love it. I feel like the green in the Garden Party shows up a little bit better out of the pictures. It's always a little bit different in the video and in the pictures. And depending on the lighting, where are you and where are your, what lights are in your kitchen or wherever you would use a soap like this. The only reason I said kitchen is because I feel like the smell would work nice in the kitchen because it has that kind of fruity vibe, citrusy vibe. Anyway, and very clean and fresh. I like it. So you see, maybe you can see here, you'll definitely see in the close-ups how clear and how just stunningly clear it is. There's times the light comes through a little bit and lights up the clear where it looks like it's kind of a little bit white, but it is not. It is super, super clear. So as you're seeing the close-ups of these, I want you to notice the detail on the lace. You don't even know that it's been coated in clear soap. You can't even see that. And that's because I fragranced it all the same. So it all, if either changed or not. So, I didn't want it to be any different than the soap I was using for the base to put it in. So, but look how clear and look how detailed that lace is. The reason it looks so detailed is because I scraped the majority of the colored soap off before I put the clear on. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to get it all off. If there's some in there, it works with that whole chiffon lace idea, where sometimes you have a really thin layer of chiffon that lace is attached to or sewn on. And but having big, if you just poured a big thick layer of the color, you're not going to have the same effect. You want to be able to see through the lace. That is what makes it look like it does. And I mean, I was super jazzed when I saw it. This is exactly what I was hoping for, which, doesn't happen often. We all have, happy mistakes and things that we would do different here and there. But this one was just so much how I envisioned it. I'm thinking that one there was a tiny bit of yellow you might see on one of these where it looked like it started to melt at one corner, but didn't. And that is also why you see me spritzing not a lot of alcohol, but you see me spritzing frequently between those layers as I'm pouring more soap in. It's because I don't want it to melt anything. So I'm cooling it as quick as I can while still trying to get it down into the bottom of each loop. You want to make sure. I did not end up with any loops that did not get filled with soap. Part of that is that technique of scooping it in, putting in one corner and kind of scooping it forward so that that soap flows into the loops. It works quite well, and I do that a lot when I do the chiffon techniques. That's part of what makes it work well. So these basically are your pictures. At the end that I normally do still pictures. This is it. And I want to tell you, if you have stuck around for this really cool technique, I can't thank you enough. You've been great at helping me, at watching, at commenting, asking great questions. Keep it up. You help my channel. You make my channel what it is. We've got a nice soap community. We are a friendly bunch. We don't overly become overly critical of each other. We support each other, and that's the way it's meant to be. There's room enough for every soaper and every design possible. I do love it when you make my designs. I also appreciate it if you tag me or at least give me credit, because this is a technique I created. Of course, I didn't create lace embeds or that idea, but the chiffon, making the soap sheets and putting them in the way I do. That's the technique I created, and I've got a lot more design ideas to do with it, and I'm sure you can come up with your own as well. I've seen many of you actually make this, use this technique for some awesome creations. I've seen a couple more recently that just wowed me, and I was so proud of you and happy that you chose to replicate my design. Well, really, you didn't, but use my technique to create your own design. Thanks so much for being here. And again, any questions, drop them in the comment section and maybe tell me what you would make using this technique. And I will hopefully see you very, very soon with another chiffon technique. I will be doing my silk rainbow design, which actually started this whole thing down the road, but the technique is quite a bit different. It's the same idea, but done in a very different manner. I'm hoping I can replicate it. Who knows? Thanks. Bye. Hey everyone. Guess what technique I use to create my wood grain soaps with melt and pour soap? I reveal it pretty quickly in this video, but while you're watching some of the ingredients that I use and different things I add, which is not very much, let me just give you a couple of little clues. And that is, this is a technique I developed a long time ago to make crystal soaps. I haven't even filmed one of these showing that technique in a crystal soap yet. I've made lots of them, but I haven't filmed it yet. So as you can guess, I'll probably be doing that real soon. I'm about to reveal the technique right now in the text up above, so keep an eye out for that. And while you're watching that, my chiffon technique, I'm going to be making a compilation video with all the soaps I've done using my chiffon technique that I've filmed. I've done a lot, but I will also include ones that you have not seen me do, have not seen me film in the pictures at the end. I'll show various demonstration or just, instances where I've used it and just haven't made a soap on film yet with it. And I will talk a little bit more about that technique and what you can use it for in the intro to that compilation. It's interesting because sometimes you might not even realize it's the same technique because there's so many different things you can do with this technique. It's quite versatile. And if you have not seen my original chiffon technique, it's Chiffon Rainbow is the name of the video. And it's It might even be a better instructional for the technique, but it's basically all using the same principle. I'm making soap sheets and then using them in different ways to get different looks within my soap. And typically, when I'm using them in the chiffon technique, I've made soap sheets for other reasons, but typically I'm wanting to float them in the soap in some way. Line them up, kind of like I do in this soap, because I'm trying to make a wood grain effect, and or make them look like they're floating or flying, kind of like I wanted to go for in the original chiffon technique. Was my idea of chiffon scarves kind of floating in the air. That was my inspiration, I guess, for that. And that's why with those colors I made them a little more transparent, translucent. And with these, you see I'm going for a very opaque look, very saturated colors, because I want them to show up a little bit more. And I'm not floating them in clear, which is what I did in the chiffon technique. Um, but you'll see if you either wait for the compilation video or just search through some of my videos to see where I might have used it. I don't always use clear because it really just depends on the look you're going for. I did one recently that used clear, and that was my chiffon lace soap that I did not too long ago. But again, the compilation video will go more in depth with all of this stuff. And right now, you just see me making soap sheets out on my silicone mat. If you don't have a silicone mat, there's other ways you can do it, but it's the easiest and the most versatile way to do them, because you're in charge of how big they are, and it's nice and flat. I've seen people use saran wrap. You can, if you're putting it on another surface, but you're likely going to get wrinkles. You're not going to have as good a control over where the soap goes, and the saran wrap can kind of take off on its own and do its own thing sometimes, unless you really have it taped down to something, or wrapped around something. But I prefer the silicone mat, and they're easy to find on Amazon. They are, if you, I'll try to link them in the video in my description box. But if you find my Amazon store, they are also linked in there under tools I use, I think. Tools that aren't soap, or tools that aren't molds or something like that. But as I'm pouring these, just kind of want to let you know, with this one, I'm I'm kind of creating the colors as I go. I knew the color palette I wanted, and I knew the colors I wanted to use for it. Um, but I'm kind of watching what they look like. With the chiffon rainbow, I wanted rainbow colors, so I had those little cups that you see me using, the silicone cups to the side. I had those each pre-set up with the mica colors I wanted to use. I had chosen them ahead of time, knowing they would work for, as a rainbow set of colors. And for this, I know for a fact, when you do a kind of a dark pink like this beautiful angry rose, and you add black to it, you're going to get a mahogany kind of color. So that's what I did, but I wasn't real cautious about measuring the amount. I just used my eyeballs, and sometimes that's the best way to go. I also sometimes in here, a couple of times, I add some pumpkinhead orange. Some of the pictures I looked through for this were for inspiration, basically, and to get a really good idea of the different looks you can get when you're looking at mahogany wood, um, antique wood. I really was going for mahogany with a look, but the fragrance oil is called mahogany teak wood, and I want to note, somewhere in here I said it. I don't know if I already put the text up for that or not, but I do use it at a very small percentage in this. So I was focusing on the mahogany for the look and the mahogany teakwood for the fragrance. But if you happened to notice the text, I am using a shave base because I intended this to be a shave soap for Father's Day. And you really don't want a super strong fragrance oil. in your shave base up by your face. Some people might, but I'd rather go with something that most people can use without any kind of harm to their skin or even just irritation from having that much fragrance in your face while you're shaving. I don't shave my face, but I'm imagining a lot of the dads out there do. And since this was kind of a Father's Day tribute soap, I I went for really light on the fragrance. And by really light, I mean less than 0.5% with this. Mahogany teakwood is kind of a medium strength. It's definitely got some body to it. It's you don't have to use a lot to get a pretty decent fragrance, but it's not typically an overpowering fragrance either. So I just went for pretty darn light. And I like the way it came out. You can smell it. It's just not, too much in your face, literally in your face. Um, but let me talk while I'm all I'm doing on these is pouring more soap out on the uh, silicone mat and making soap sheets, spreading it with a little palette thing. You can use a palette knife. You can use a little scraper like I'm using. You can use a pastry cutter. I like the plastic scrapers for this because I'm not trying to scrape. I'm not trying to make super thin sheets. They're thin sheets, and I want them kind of sort of evenish. You may notice in here that I have little globs here and there, and I don't care. You might notice in the chiffon soap I had a little lump, and I quickly grabbed it out because I didn't want that in there. With this, it doesn't matter. I know I'm totally interrupting myself, but um, I just wanted you to see those little kind of blobs that get in there because I could have melted them out, could have popped it back in the microwave again and melted those down, but it gives it a little character. You're talking about a wood grain soap. So wood grain is not perfect. And shouldn't look too perfect. It would look funny to me anyway. So back to what I was talking about with the soap. I wanted to talk about the soap base I'm using a little bit. I am not sponsored by Wholesale Supplies Plus. Not that I wish I weren't, but I'm not in any way sponsored by them. And but I love their stuff, and you will hear me talk about their stuff a lot if you get to know my channel, if you don't already. They make my favorite soap bases, and this is one of them. My go-to soap is their crystal clear, crystal clear, because I like art soaps. Well, this is one of the fun designs that shows you can make art soaps without a crystal clear look. It is my favorite to have something in clear soap. That's what led me to melt and pour. I like transparent things. I like art glass, glass art, whatever way you want to put it. I like the look of things that are transparent with a little bit of color or without color or whatever. That's a thing for me. So this is not. Now, if you buy this shave and shampoo is what it's called, and from Wholesale Supplies Plus, it's Crafter's Choice, it is a little bit transparent. So it does take color extremely well. If you were to use let's say a goat milk soap or something that's very opaque, it's not going to take this color this dark and deep as easily because it's white. And when you mix colors with white, even dark colors, you're going to get a pastel. Um, it's very difficult to get something this intense and dark and deep in color with a soap that isn't at least semi-transparent or translucent. And the shaving soap it's not something you want to embed a bunch of beautiful embeds you've made and you want to see all the way through to the bottom of them. It's just not going to work for that, but it is translucent. So as you can see here, you're going to get a really colorful design from this. And again, I'm using colors that to me kind of represent mahogany. So when I added the orange to that last sheet, it made it kind of a copper, and that's what I was going for with that look there. So I go from kind of mahoganies and coppers, and I put a flash of orange in because, as I was telling you earlier, and yet again interrupted myself, it's just what I do. I was looking for inspiration at different pictures of mahogany, And I looked at some teak wood too. I think I mentioned that. But mahogany is so, so beautiful in color that's what I was going for the look of. And you see a huge variety in there, everywhere from really deep reds. And I did see some that had beautiful flashes of orange, not just copper, but orange. So I wanted to add that and see how it went. I was pleased that I added it in there. I had hoped it would swirl in a little bit more than it does, but spoiler alert, helps if you can talk when you're making a YouTube channel. But you're stuck with me. So um, it does swirl in a little, and but it does come out quite nice. I love the way it came out. If I were to change something, I'll talk about that at the end. There's one little thing, and you know me, I get picky. Why? Because if I go to do it again, I might want to change it. I might want to make it a little bit better. And I'm not cutting down this soap again. I love the way this soap came out. It came out quite beautiful. It is difficult to see in the end video. I hold them up close to the camera, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we get down to it. But I do add some sort of light box pictures that we did um, because we were able to capture the look of it a little bit better. It was quite hard to see because they're very dark. They're just dark, and our lighting is just kind of off right now. And it's kind of hard to think about changing it because we're going to be changing some other things that might affect it. So it will just be kind of changing one thing at a time with the lighting anyway. So let me talk a little bit about what I'm doing down here with that weird stick and the knife. That little stick is one that I was using to stir with. You probably noticed me using it earlier with the charcoal soap. And all I did was to turn it into a very quick little measuring stick, sort of, is just mark how high my mold comes up. I was basically estimating, but that's what I used to kind of gauge how wide to make my sheets. Now, right now, you're seeing me roll up a wood knot, and that's what I'm doing here. This is how I create the wood knots in my wood soap. I only included one in this soap. I have done two before. You could probably do three. Depends on what you can fit in and what you want to do with it. But yeah, you just roll up a soap sheet, and then I kind of create. I'm hoping you'll be able to tell when I hold this up to the camera, but kind of a V around it because it is going to be facing toward the bottom, I believe. So it just looks like it's been cut off, but it's kind of like that pinched oval look you see. I don't know if there's probably a better word for that, but the wood grain makes its way around the wood knot, and it gives kind of this ovally or elongated oval look to it. And so that's what I was doing with that other one. I end up using two of those. They kind of get displaced because of the way I put them in. This is one of those soaps that once you get going, when you're doing the pour, you have to hurry. You have to go like crazy. And it's the same for the chiffon, any of the chiffon soaps. You really have to kind of put them in all at once because your soap's going to start setting up quite fast once you put in a bunch of embeds. And so it's kind of a work smarter and get ready, be prepared. This is why you see me cutting the length of these before I do much. That's what I was cutting, the length and the width of them. Now, something I did not do very well, I kind of gave myself some wiggle room with the knot. There's that extra piece around it. I forgot, and you'll see me kind of quickly pull it out and do it at the last minute, but I forgot to cut the length exactly. I should have cut the length exactly for that knot. So when I go to put it in, you see me quickly grab it back out and cut off about an inch and go to put it back in. And I want you to watch when I am putting that, and this is just me melting more of the shave base soap. I melted this one, not Mr. Soaps and Such. If you were following along with the text earlier, you saw that he is learning to soap, and he did melt the first batch for me. We did it on film, and we're going to be creating a whole series that is going to be a part of one of my memberships, and it will be a higher level that we haven't put on there yet because we have to get enough things filmed so that we can get ahead, because it is a lot of work. But we're going to do Mr. Soaps and Such Learns to Soap. And so well, when I filmed this, he helped me out and we filmed it. And so because you've seen me melt soap before, I didn't really show it in this one. And this isn't necessarily a super beginner soap, but if you need to learn how to melt soap, I've got quite a few videos showing that. One is called How to Melt Soap, I'm pretty sure. So if you need help finding it, let me know. But 30-second bursts is the key, and stirring in between. And but he did all that for me the first time. And you saw me adding to this. I added more cubes of soap after the first bit melted down. I don't know if you caught that, but this is how I can get such a full pot or a full pitcher, is to melt it down and then add more cubes. Have it weighed out first, and I take out the ones that are kind of make it too top heavy to just stick in the microwave. They're going to get knocked off because I don't have a really tall microwave. So I pull them out and set them in a side pitcher, and then come back and add them as it starts to melt down a little bit. That's just my thing, my tip, or my little trick that I like to use, because it's that, or you end up melting a bunch of different buckets of soap. So yeah, and I did, because it's very easy to underestimate how much of that soap is going to stick out. I could have measured each little piece and of the sheets, but I wanted to do the kind of organic look thing, so I didn't. You could use your mold as a guide, and you could melt these thin sheets inside your mold and pull those out. They're a little harder to pull out of these kind of molds, but they're not so hard to pull out of slab molds. You can do them. I've done them many times in slab molds. You've probably seen me do that when I'm getting ready to cut little embeds out. I do it frequently in there. And you can check that out in my koi pond soaps, because I do use soap sheets to cut for those little embeds. But we're getting ready to do the pour, so I better get kind of caught up with what's going on screen. All I'm doing is getting ready to color that big batch. And here's the one thing I would change about this, and that is in a moment I'm adding just the Angry Rose, and I went in a moment, I add a little bit of black to it. I'm not even sure you can catch it on screen, because it's kind of to the side of me, off to the right, and I pour it in, and you'll see me stir, and it gets a little darker. I'm kind of sorry I did that. Not completely sorry, but I feel like it would have had better contrast and picked up a little bit easier on the film, and been a little bit lighter in color. I know it's rose, it's kind of a girlish color, but it really doesn't look girlish in the soap, like not even a little bit. And I don't think it would have if I hadn't added the black, but that's why I added it, is because I was a little worried that it might look a little too pink, but it really wouldn't have. Anyway, so I interrupted myself saying something, and now I'm going to try to recapture it, see if I can figure out what it was. No, it's gone. So if I think of it, I'll add it into a comment, and I'll pin that comment, because I don't like to leave any instructions out. If you, and I see I've added the black already, and I add a little bit more here. If you have any questions, if you notice anything I've left out, or that you can't see what I'm doing or something like that, please always feel free to ask a question in the comment section. That is the best way for you to communicate with me when it comes to the individual videos. I occasionally will do a Q&A, and you can ask questions there, but it's harder when it's about a specific soap rather than a general soaping question. And it helps if it's relevant to the video you're commenting on, because then I can go back and see it. I don't always remember what I've done and said in a video 2 years later. Surprising. So I only fill that maybe halfway up, maybe not quite. And so here's a little bit of the trouble I ran into is I do like them to stick up out of the little sheets you see. I like them to stick up out so I can cut it all at once and it looks like a cut piece of wood. So I underestimated how much base I needed. However, I compensate for that quite well with this one because here comes the mistake. Not mistake, but the almost mistake. I forgot to trim it, so I'm measuring it there, cut off about 3/4 of an inch. And I shove that in and I flip it over and shove it in the other way. That's pushing the soap up into that curl. Because if you just try to put it in without doing anything, same with these little foldovers, little ovals I'm putting over top, you have to get soap in there. And if you just put it into a halfway full thing of soap, it's not going to fill up. So I shove that curl all the way down and it pushes it in. And then I not shake it, but I alter it a little bit and pour soap at the end. And then I pick up, you might notice I pick up the little kind of cave I made for that little, the little ovals or tent, it looks like. I pick that up a little bit and pour soap down in there. I don't want anything to have air bubbles. I do end up having a few little spots and air bubbles, and I will show you what I do to fix that. I will also show you what I do to fix the fact that I ran out of soap for this. It would have been far too shallow, and I'm kind of panicking about now, and I'm like, well, I've got orange. I can pour more orange. So I do that, but I've got extra pieces that I didn't really have room for in the inside, and so I melted those. I didn't show you me. I didn't stop. I did melt it, but I didn't, stop the video. I just cut that part out because you don't need to see me melting soap. I melted it very short, little 10-second bursts, maybe one for 15 at the first, and then come back in. I pour it pretty hot. It's not going to melt that much here. It's a very small amount of soap. And you will see after I cut off the top, I do go back and you'll see, hopefully you will see why. Here comes the cut. This is one of my favorite parts. I call it giving it a haircut. And I don't do it with every one of my chiffon style soaps because sometimes I want that look. Obviously for this, I did not want that look. It would have looked kind of weird and wacky. Well, it might have looked more like driftwood or something, where the bottom was more of an intentional cut and the top was not. But either way, I did cut it off. And then when I cut it off, I saw there were some cracks and crevices that weren't all the way filled, which meant the soap would have fallen apart. No matter how well I set it up or how hot I poured, it would have fallen apart. So I melted all of those. And the colors are going to come together to be a brown or a dark mahogany or whatever they're going to go. They're going to go with the color palette, so it does not matter. I'm coming back in and pouring in the cracks, spraying it so it moves. Alcohol will move your soap, so if you spritz it, it's going to help it move down into the crack. I poured it quite hot. I think about 140 for this because you do want it to melt a little bit. You want it to melt those bits together because it was fairly set up. Wasn't completely set up. I wouldn't have removed it from the mold quite yet. It would have been still too liquid for that. So that did help me. I caught it. But you notice I'm tapping it down. There were some bubbles that came up. I spritzed those. I poured more. I poured as much as I could possibly get it to hold before I do this and pour out one last sheet. And guess what? That sheet's just going to be for another soap. I use soap sheets a lot. And maybe even I will come back and use that one to show you how I use them in my crystal soaps. But I have, well, maybe not. I guess it depends on the fragrance. You do have to watch when you're using leftovers like this, that the fragrances will match at least. They don't have to match perfectly, but they do have to go together. So one pretty kind of a mahogany color piece. And I just roll it up and put it out of the way and let it set up the rest of the way and cleaned up the outside edge a little bit. I do all of that off camera because you don't want to see me cleaning up. That's very boring. So as I'm pushing this out here, the first little bit you're going to see is obviously you're going to see the bottom, which is kind of hard to see. It does look cool, but it's harder to see the grain. It does show up a little bit in there. And I do give myself a little bit of a thumbs down. And that's really only because I don't like the way the side looks. And I hadn't cut it yet. So, forgive me for thumbs downing my soap. I was like, oh, that orange looks terrible. But it worked out really well in the end once I cut the pieces. So I'm not upset that I put the orange in. I could have dulled it down a little or swirled it in a little bit more than I did, and but I still like it. So it really did kind of remind me of the picture I saw where a part of that had this bright orange glow to it. Yeah, see there. The side just kind of looked weird, but once you cut it, it really doesn't matter. Nobody's looking at the side for the most part. I mean, if they do, I guess that's on them because the side isn't the part that matters. I will say as I'm cutting it here, this is where it's difficult to see the actual wood grain. But at the end, you will see pictures that show it off a little bit better. Um, Again, we had issues with our lighting, and when it comes to us holding them up close, and usually Mr. Soaps and such is just adjusting the camera so we can get down closer. I can bring them up closer without it getting blurry, that kind of thing. But in this video, when you see me bringing them up, poor Mr. Soaps and such is basically almost standing on his head trying to get the lighting adjusted. He picks up one of our lights and is shining it right at it so we can catch it. It was so hard to catch in the light. But I do believe we get a fairly decent image for you to show you, and definitely by the end. That for some reason the phone camera that and I still don't have. I have my phone and it is still working, but I'm not using it for pictures yet because it's not my new phone. I'm waiting. My phone smashed. If you all didn't see my last video that showed that, it's still smashed, but with a cover over it. I don't have to have it in a baggie anymore. Has a cover on it so I don't slice my fingers open. And I probably could use the camera. It's just kind of hard to see what I'm doing through the cracked front. So I just figured I'll wait and let Mr. Soaps and such take pictures for me, which he did for this, and I was extremely grateful. If you have not met my soap guillotine yet, that is Uncle Andy's soap guillotine. We just call it a guillotine. It's not. It's Uncle Andy's soap cutter. You can find him on um, Facebook is how I actually found him, but he has an Etsy shop, I believe, as well. And it's well worth it if you do melt and pour. It's the best soap cutter I have found for melt and pour if you want real even slices. See this, you can kind of see it here. He's, holding a light like right at it to get it to show up. But you'll see it better. You'll see the knot a lot better in the pictures. I do include in this at the end of this the pictures. I'm including some of the last batch I did. I didn't make a video of it, but I did take pictures for my website, and I include those on here so you can see how different the looks come out. I did not add the orange to the last one. I did have a little bit of silver, however, and part of that goes with just the fact that I already had some scraps set up, and I had some soap sheets that I'd made, and I pulled those. I didn't really make enough of the brown and black ones that I had intended for the wood grain soap, so I had the silver ones sitting there and made a last minute decision to shove them into the soap and make it have enough of a wood grain to it. And it did, and it worked really cool. So you can use different colors. Gold would look very cool, I think, in some of these. You don't want a huge contrast, but you do want more contrast than what's showing up here. And so you can go a little bit lighter. You could have used copper. I was very tempted to use not Interstellar, but the copper space one that Mad Micas does, and that's oh gosh, solar. No, not. I can't think of it, but you probably know, and I'll probably put it here somewhere at the end. It's uh, it's just a little sparkly. I was kind of worried to make it too sparkly. So here we go. Here's the pictures that Mr. Sips and Such took for us, and you can see that's more what they look like. They've got a beautiful wood grain to them, and here's my older one. And as you're taking a peek at these, I just want to thank you for stopping by. Thank you for taking a look at my wood grain soaps and for hanging out with me. I'm hoping to do a lot more with my Chiffon technique, and I hope to see you there soon. Thanks. Bye. Hey again. I really hope you enjoyed that compilation video and watching some of those fun chiffon technique soaps being made. I hope you try them. And I'm hoping that in looking at what you're seeing now up on the screen, some of my crystal designs and some of the other ways I've used the chiffon technique, including my original one that was, I'm not going to call it the silk technique because it's really it's just a slight bit off, but I'm going to include that in here because it was my original uh, inspiration for the chiffon technique. I did the silk scarves look, and I wanted to see if I could get it to be see-through, and that was the idea of the chiffon. Um, I have yet to film that one and really any of these, but I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the other ways that I have used this technique and get your creative juices flowing. If you have not tried this technique, I highly recommend it. It is so much fun to dump soap out on a silicone mat. I cannot tell you why that is so satisfying. I have no idea, but it's really fun. So I hope to see you soon with some new chiffon designs and some of my old chiffon designs. I love it when you create my designs, and I love it even more when you post them and tag me in it. I love to see what you've made. Thanks so much. Bye.